do a roll call.
Councilor Drabkin.
Here.
Councilor Garvin.
I worked for so long, so when I...
Councilor Geary.
Here.
Councilor Chenoweth.
Here.
Councilor Peralta.
Here.
Council President Menke.
Here.
And Mayor Hill.
Here. This evening, during our work session, we are going to do goal-setting kickoff, and we're going to turn this over to Jeff to introduce our consultant, our Councilor Wendy Stassens. And so, Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. You stole my best line. So Wendy is living in Two Worlds right now as a soon-to-be former city councilor minutes from now, and soon-to-be pro bono consultant for the city of McMinnville. Wendy will be kicking off tonight's 4-meeting goal-setting session with about an hour of introduction and overview and homework assignment. We'll spend the next 2 Wednesday work sessions in January and February in 3-hour goal-setting sessions, and then at the end of February at your regular meeting work session, Wendy will be facilitating a 1-hour wrap-up. So it's a little bit different approach. We're trying to rely on the framework set forth in the EOS series of books that have already been assigned for at least partial reading. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Wendy Stassens to lead the rest of the conversation. Thank you very much, Wendy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jeff. It is strange to be, Claudia was giving me a hard time because she wasn't going to call my name for roll call. It's kind of strange to be in a different seat, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys tonight. And I'm excited to welcome Councilor Chenoweth and to get to be a part of a different phase. So I do have a presentation tonight that I will share with you guys that will guide our conversation around what to expect with this goal setting. Does everybody see my slideshow?
Yes, Wendy.
Great, awesome. Okay, so what we're doing tonight is we're introducing what the strategy is for this year for our 2021 goal setting. And what we're working on doing with our 2021 goal setting is to take the work that has already been done. That has already been done, that a lot of thought work has been put into that 2032 strategic plan. And we also had a 2019 retreat that further fine-tuned that thought work. So our work, this goal setting, is to bring that thought work into data that we use for this year to inform the boots on the ground work that we're doing for this year. So that's what this program is designed to do, and I'll walk you through some of the steps that we're going to take. So what outcomes are we trying to achieve through this process? We are working to create a shared vision among city leaders, which includes our city council and department heads, and begin the work of creating a congruent team acting in alignment with the shared vision for the benefit of the city. So one of the things that we did in the strategic plan with all of that thought work is there is a stated mission, vision, and values that is in paper right now. And the next step to bring that out of paper and into an embodied group or organization is to work on processing it through the lens of the work that we're doing every day, right? That's how it becomes a living vision, a living mission. And that creates alignment in a leadership community when you embody that vision or that mission. So we're just going to touch the surface of that in one of the homework assignments and in the opening of one of the activities, but that is one of the things that we will touch on in the goal setting. The second thing that we're going to be working on, and this is the biggest part of the goal setting work, is to utilize the 2032 strategic plan and the results from the work session in January of 2019 to create 2021 specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-coupled goals. And so the biggest thing about that is do we know how to measure it? Do we know when it's done? Do we have a finite, very specific thing that we're trying to accomplish so we know if we're successful? And then the last thing, out of that work, we're going to create an action plan for tracking our success using the measurable goals that we've created as a scorecard. We're going to touch a white paper on that, but more of that work will come in the coming months. So really the biggest part of these 4 sessions is going to be that number 2 on this slide. And I am just the reason that I'm doing this instead of a different consultant is because I'm going to be working throughout the year on what's called an entrepreneurial operating system. And it's just like how your computer has an operating system that tells it how to function. Every organization has an operating system that is more or less effective. And the system that we're going to be developing is really defining what is an operating system that works optimally for us. I describe it as building a machine to produce excellence in governance. We have a history of excellence in governance. We'd like to build that into the very fabric of how the McMinnville City Council, it's City Council focused, how the McMinnville City Council does our work. And the way we do that is, the way we're going to approach that this year is by putting an operating system in place that will last beyond all of us, right? So that we are setting a precedent that will enable future councils to be highly effective in also creating excellence in governance. So we'll talk about this more. This is just to show you that this goal setting touches 2 parts of that work. It touches vision and it touches data. So the work that we're going to be doing today is starting the work of the operating system that we're going to be working on throughout the year. This is just talking about the vision component again, that you can't have a learning organization without a shared vision. The shared vision is like your compass that enables you to function even when stress develops. And so strengthening this enables us to stay on the same page and be aligned in our work that we're doing together. And then the data component is what we're doing with regards to this thought work is doing the hard work of turning thought work into hard data. And that's really the next step to make all of that thought work produce results. And so when you turn those high-level thoughts into measurable data, you can easily track. It allows you to develop systems of accountability and to tell whether you're on track or you're off track. So without having it be something that's measurable, it's harder to tell, so you don't have the clarity to be able to course correct. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. Hearing none, I don't see any hands either. So the last thing the last definition I put in here that is also related to EOS is the book about EOS is called Traction. And the way they define it really describes pretty well what we're trying to do here. And they describe it as traction means bringing discipline and accountability into the organization, becoming great at execution, taking the vision down to the ground and making it real. So we're taking that thought work that's in the strategic plan that right now is a really dense book of great work, and we're bringing it to execution. That's our goal and in this work.
Wendy, can I ask one question at this point? You know, we talk about traction, we talk about bringing discipline and accountability, but as a council, just to make sure that we understand is the execution that we're working on is policy and procedure only. Is that correct?
Yes. So within our level of functioning, we are giving policy direction to high-level plans. That's our product, is giving that policy direction to high-level plans. And we'll look at that. When we look at the homework, we'll look at that a little bit more. part of what you work on when you're creating organizational structure is any structure that you're creating in the organization, you go through a process which we call plan, do, check, act. So there are 4 stages, and you cycle through those stages. So the plan is where we live. We give policy direction to the plan for organizational change at the city council level. The do is implementation, which really lives with our staff. And the check and the act is once you do, you have that plan institutionalized in the body of our staff, our city organization beyond city council. They're constantly improving, which is the check act part where they need to collect the data. So you're correct, Scott. The results that we're looking to get are being very effective at putting the right plans in place that empower our organization at the staff level to be able to implement, do, check, and act. But that's not what, we don't get down to that level. Any other questions? No, okay. So how are we planning on doing that? So we're gonna do this over 4 work sessions. And the 4 work sessions are going to be, I added between work session 1 and work session 2, there's going to be some homework involved that will be really important to being prepared for the second work session. So in the first work session, where really it's a kickoff meeting. So I want, coming out of this, I would like for everybody to have a really clear understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and what the strategy is for doing it together. So any questions that you have about that, I'd love to answer them. And then the second part of it is to really understand what you need to do for homework in order to be prepared for the second session, which is where really most of the work is going to be happening. And the quality of homework that we do between the first and second session will highly impact the quality of the results that we get. So the second session, and we'll be explaining the homework shortly. So we'll go deeper into that homework between the first and second session. The second session is when we start converting the top priorities into measurable goals. And again, I use the term SMART, but really if you just keep asking yourself, is it specific and measurable? Is it specific? Do I know when it's done? Can I tell if I'm on track? Then that's what that means, is that you're very, very clear and very specific about what needs to be accomplished and what it means to be done and to have been successful. So we're going to be processing the data from the homework that everybody completes, and we're going to be identifying what the top priorities are out of that data, and then we're going to be in the creating the work that will actually be done in that work session is actually creating the goals that are very specific and measurable. And then work session 3, between work session 2 and work session 3, we're going to be creating, out of the work that's done in work session 2, we'll create a white paper that presents the results, so the goals that were created and an action plan for implementation. We'll present that and collect feedback in work session 3 in February. And then work session 4 will really be just updated from the feedback that we got in work session 3 and approval. So there probably will be less work in work session 4, of probably more like this work session maybe, if not fewer. Does anybody have any questions about, this is the overall, before I move into the homework for you guys to understand, this is the overall strategy for getting there. Okay. So the kickoff work session 1, homework. So the first thing that we're going to do is, I keep mentioning the thought work that has been done, and that has been documented in some primary documents. The first is, of course, the 2032 McMinnville Strategic Plan. Then we did the retreat, and there's a 2019 retreat summary that was provided by Eric Jensen. And along with that summary, Eric Jensen also provided an updated 2032 McMinnville strategic plan. There were a couple of additions to the strategic plan and some modifications. So all three of those documents as part of preparation, it will be good for you to read again and really internalize. And then this second part is the vision part that we talked about that we said.
Wendy?
Yeah. Oh.
If individuals on the council need to know where to go get those three documents, where can they be found?
Well, Claudia is going to send them out with the homework packet. So they'll have a package that includes those three documents, the spreadsheet these questions to process the vision, mission, and values, and the spreadsheet that they have to complete. So they won't have to go anywhere to look for them. Isn't that correct, Claudia?
She's saying yes.
Yes, Wendy, I will get all those out, and then I'll also make it part of the record.
Perfect. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, so the second part, in addition to the reading of those documents, is to start processing the vision, the vision, mission, and values that was created in that thought work. And the way that I didn't include all of the questions here, but the method that I included for that is to really do some deep thinking about how that mission, vision, and values is manifested in what you do for the city. So this is an example of some of the questions that you'll be asking yourself in preparation for work session 2. What does it mean to be collaborative as a city? So what does that word mean? That's in our vision statement. What does it mean? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And the more you can really have a picture of what that feels like and looks like for you, the more you internalize it as part of how you're going to do your job within the city. So you're going to start representing that vision, right? Because you make it personal to you and your role in the city. And then, of course, the second one really drives that home, saying what roles does the city government play in creating an environment that encourages collaboration? So while seeing two neighbors collaborate with each other might be a collaborative environment, what does the city do specifically to lay the groundwork for having that happen? What's our role in developing the manifestation of a vision where collaboration is our end, right? And so there are questions included in your homework to just for thought work. You're not going to turn that in or anything. The only output that we're going to ask of you is in the second session, we're going to have a round robin at the beginning, and we're going to take 2 minutes for each person to just say what their takeaways were from the exercise. Any questions on that part of the homework?
Yeah, Wendy, I have a question.
Sure.
Can you delineate a little bit more, maybe use examples to say what you mean by these two different things? In other words, the work that I do in my role as a counselor that is collaborative, and what I am doing for how I'm manifesting our strategic plan into my council work.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand how that would be different in terms of then what does the city do? Who do you mean when you say the city? Because I think we are all the city, the staff is all the city. So without doing, so what are you looking for with that second part when you say, what does the city do? Because to me, that would be almost the same answer.
Great question. And actually, Susan pre-asked that question for you. And so I'm sorry I didn't more clearly define that. I would say yes to both, because and what I mean by that is, as you're building the picture, you play a specific role in how you're influencing the city. So you would want to look at that, but then you'd also want to see in your role how you do your job. What does the city as a whole, including like the staff, what influence do we have as the whole organization to make the collaborative environment? Because some of your policy decisions will be impacted by looking through the lens of that vision. So there are two parts. There's like me personally with what I directly do, but there's then taking a magnification back and understanding the whole of the organization that I'm influencing. What direction did they provide, right? So there is, you are correct. There's more than one way to look at this. And I think both would be helpful, right? Does that answer your question? No?
I think so. So what I'm understanding the second question to be is how does that individual work then translate into greater organizational decisions? And so when you're looking through that lens of collaboration, you're not only looking within the council, you're looking within the council and the staff, and then perhaps with other government or other government organizations, non-government organizations, nonprofits, et cetera. How does it reverberate out into the community?
Absolutely. So you can, I'll give another example. You can go deep into saying, if I embody and how I do my work on the city council, if I model that collaboration, it can be one answer. And then it can also be, to your point, something more organizational. Like if we as an organization reach out to overtly collaborate more with partners, that can be a correct answer as well, right? So there are a lot of different ways that we can foster collaboration, and it can be at a lot of different levels, right? Yep, okay. I was looking to see if there was anything else. Any other questions before I go on from the vision part of the homework?
Yeah, I have a rudimentary question.
Sure.
You've mentioned a couple of times a book that was assigned as a homework assignment. Of course, I probably was not sitting on the city council at the time that this was assigned.
Yeah, we'll get it to you.
No idea what you're talking about. So.
I know you don't. I will get it to you, and I would be glad to kind of meet with you and talk with you about EOS to catch you up to speed. And just so you know, Councilor Chenoweth, we will be talking about what's in that book in pieces throughout the year. So we don't expect you to know all about EOS just because I had it on a slide here. The reason I have the EOS on the slide here is to understand the big picture and then the specifics we're doing and where it fits in that. So we'll get you that book, and I'll also maybe sit down with you and talk with you about kind of the big picture of EOS and what work we're doing together this year on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. So the next part is, there's not very much on this slide, but it's because I have a whole other document for you guys. So this is really the meat of the work that you guys are going to be doing between now and Friday. And it's in the form of a goal, the City of McMinnville goal setting preparation exercise, prioritizing 2032 strategic plan priorities spreadsheet. So that's a mouthful. But don't worry, it's not as scary as that once you start using it. So hold on, I'm gonna switch. Oh, hold on a second here. And we're gonna go ahead and review that now. And you guys are, as we're processing this, as you're processing this, if you have questions, you are welcome to call me at any time to kind of talk through it, because I'm sure you might have questions as you start to use this spreadsheet. So this spreadsheet is what I keep referring to as taking that thought work and bringing it into data. So what's on this spreadsheet is the goals, the strategic plan objectives, and the strategic plan action priorities that were generated in the strategic plan and also in that work session in the early 2019. The ones that are highlighted in yellow were the ones in that strategic plan work session in 2019 that were identified as the priorities, the top priorities at that time. So this is in its original context, not changed from that date forward. But what we're going to do in this spreadsheet, there's a lot of them, But what we're going to do in this spreadsheet is we're going to evaluate these priorities. So there is an end in sight. Hold on a second here. So we came up with a lot of ideas, right? And as you guys know, probably from your own work experience and your own personal life, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority, right? So we did do a good job of narrowing it down. You see there's only a few that are highlighted as yellow from the work session in early 2019. So we narrowed it down to the most important ones then. And we determined that we couldn't do everything, so we had to identify which ones we were going to take immediate action on. So this is how you're going to prepare for the work session number 2. In each one of the columns, there's a question at the top. And so the first question, so say we're processing A1A that says strategically participate in local and regional partnerships. So the first question in column D is, in your opinion, is this action priority measurable? And the 2 additional questions are really to help you to start thinking about this. And you can ask, if yes, what's the metric statement? So how do I know it's done? Like, say I said, instead of this, I said, form 2 partnerships with other organizations, government organizations, other towns, or what does a partnership look like? You know, like, how do I know if it's done? How do I know if I was successful? That's what a metric is. You've identified it clearly enough that you can say, yes, it's done, or no, it's not done. So you'd answer the question for that particular priority. The second question you're going to ask is, if this is a priority to be implemented by city council and not by staff. There are a few of them in there that the implementation phase, so we talked about the plan, do, check, act. Normally, our role at the city council level, our primary function is to inform with policy the plan stage. That's where we live. There are a few, and this A1A is one of them, that we might actually plan on us being the implementers of, right? So we're looking at, to Remy's point, if we're looking at us as the city council creating more of those partnerships, then on this one, we would answer that it is the city council that's doing the implementation and not the staff, right? So that's important for us to know who's responsible for driving it forward once the plan is done. And in that case, we'd be responsible for that whole cycle of plan, do, which is the implementation and institutionalizing, so getting it embedded as a habit in our organization, the checking to make sure it's working, so whatever plan for making sure that we're maintaining those strategic partnerships over time, and then the acting to improve it over time would all still live with the city council. And then this next one, F, is if it's the city staff that's doing the do, check, act, is the city staff already working on this action priority? So like I said, these haven't been updated with what's current. So we're going to identify, are we already in progress on this priority action? And that will inform us about what is still at the level of policy and plan versus what is really in operation and maybe not at the level of a city council goal. And then the column D is, has the planning and implementation of this priority already occurred? Is this priority at the level of staff implementation and improvement? And you put a 0 if we're sure that that's been handed off, because it really comes off of goals for the city council at that point, because it becomes part of the organization, right? It's a different level of goals than what we really usually do. And that's why you put a 0 in at this stage. And then, is this a policy level priority? Is it broad and far reaching enough? So even if the planning department hasn't, the staff hasn't already implemented it, is it too specific that it really is more of something that would fall within just doing it in the organization and not the policy and plan, which are the big needles, the big picture stuff, right? So we're going to put it through the lens of, is this a big picture thing, or is it a very specific thing that really should be at a different level of goal setting? And so you put a 0 in there if it is a city staff level priority, and a 1 if you say yes, it is a broad policy level conversation. And then the last 2 are urgent and important. So time horizon. Now, one thing I will say is some of these statements are broad enough that they will be 3-year to 4-year to 5-year possibly work, because some of them are broad statements. So what you're looking at here is, how urgent is it that we start this now? Even if it's going to be over 3 years, we're going to have to break it down. You eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? Even if it's a big project that is going to take us 3 years to implement, it's a 1 if it's very important that we start working on the high level plan for this now. And when we get to the point where we're setting those SMART goals, we'll identify, okay, this is a goal that really is going to take us over more than 1 year. But this year, the priority, the SMART goal will be to get us to this point, right? So it's a 1, 3, 5, or 10. So if it's not as important, it's not as urgent, we'd put it out 3, 5, or 10 years. If it's really, really important and urgent, I should say, we should put it at 1. Okay? Okay. Zach, do you have a question? Remy has a question. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was waiting for Zach to go, but to see both screens, my screen's not showing me Zach, so I'm guessing he's... Okay, so using your own example, well, first of all, let me clarify. You only want us to answer all these questions for the priorities that have been highlighted, right? Not for that.
Well, so no, they're not. No, it's not just for the priorities that are highlighted. What we're working on doing is ruling out ones that we're not going to be looking at this year. So if you feel like you can go down first and say, certain ones you're going to rule out, you just go ahead and rule them out and go through this deeper level exercise with the ones that you really feel like are a priority for you to look at. The ones that are highlighted, you can start with first, because if we're not done with those yet, then we will, to Kellie's point, we will look at continuing those, because we've already addressed that those are critical things to address.
Okay, so then...
Does that make sense?
Kind of, except some of these are so broad that I don't really see it being applicable. So just with this first one, strategically participate in local and regional partnerships, I mean, that's an ongoing goal, right? That's never going to be over. That's something that counselors and staff should always be doing. Right. So, how would you then, so if you play that first one out through your matrix, how would you, what would you do with it? Right. So that's a great question. And I actually was planning on doing a practice one. So let's start with that. You are correct. This is not a good goal for that reason. And not saying that there wouldn't be a goal that we would want to put in there. If we say, for example, if we decided my answer to the first question, in your opinion, is this action priority measurable? I would say no, it's not. And so if we decide, then if we go on to the next one, so say, Remy, you already said, no, I'm struggling with this because this is just an ongoing thing. Do we know when it's done? No, that means it's not measurable, right? That being said, let's go to the next one. If this is a priority that to be implemented by city council and not by staff, is this already at the implementation stage within city council?
plan, do, check, act. Do we think we have priority level planning to do on this strategic plan priority? Do we think that we need to spend time working on policy level direction to create a plan for this particular strategic priority? Thoughts?
Seems like to me that if it's already in play, I don't know that we need to do a lot more discussion of it other than if
Right.
people are struggling with it for some reason.
So that's exactly where I think Remy might have been going. Do you think there's some planning work, policy driven planning work that needs to be done for the implementation of this priority action that was identified in the strategic plan?
And I think this is it's a item that changes with the makeup of the council. I think a lot of our regional and statewide involvement is in things that we personally have expertise or desire or passion. And so I don't know that you could put specific goals to that depending upon who's sitting in the chairs and their ability, time, and efforts to move forward.
Right.
I would agree with that because I mean, I can think personally of something Remy and I are doing right now that we're definitely reaching out beyond the city council to get advice and hopefully more information. And, you know, as long as we let Jeff know, I think we're okay. And I don't know that we need a whole lot of kibitzing about it with the council.
Yeah. And that's exactly what this thought work is intended to do. So and we're going to go through the rest of them because I think it's really important as you practice exercising that level. It's not a black and white exercise, right? The whole point is to bring you to deeper level of thought. We put this as one of our top priorities in 2019, and it's not even a measurable goal, right? And so it makes it hard if the whole point is, if we do want this to be a measurable goal, then we need to be way more specific. We need to decide that it's still at the policy level planning that would bring it up to being one of the 5 to 7 goals that we have as our primary work, right? And so those are the kinds of questions, the kind of deep work that the questions are helping us to think about. So one thing that if it is overwhelming to do this number, you could go down and select the ones that you just gut feeling that you're like, I just feel like these are the ones that I want to really delve into and figure out if, how important these ones are. And other ones you might say that, you know, they're not the highest priority for you, and you just zero them out basically, right? So let's ask the next one. So is your city staff already working on this action priority? Yes or no? And we had talked about this. This is probably one of the ones that really rests more with the city council to make those networks. So it would probably be an implementation plan, do, check, act for the city council level. So this F, you know, would.
I think it's equally staff. I mean, staff's doing this all the time, Wendy.
Yeah. So we can say, but if it were just with the city council, we could just not answer that one. If we feel like it applies to city staff as well, is city staff already working on this as well?
Yes.
And I think the answer would be yes there too. So has the planning and implementation of this priority already occurred? Is this priority in the level of staff implementation and improvement? And I think what Remy and Kellie are saying is that yes, it is. So it zeroes that one out. And then you've already zeroed it out, so you don't really have to answer the rest of them. And that would drop this off where it would not be a priority for this year to even look at it for goal setting.
But I can see, looking at it, I mean, we've had this discussion and I agree with it, but then I looked at Councilor Chenoweth down there and think maybe he's not that happy about the decision making.
Well, he's going to do the same thing, and maybe he won't zero it out. And that's the thing, is that
okay, I get it.
we're trying to determine, and one of the things to realize is that just because you say that this isn't something that we're going to do this year doesn't mean that it will never be done. The key is that 20% of our work is going to produce 80% of our results. So we are looking to find the 20%. If we live in the 20%, we're going to be massively productive and effective. And so we're trying to weed out the things that really aren't, it's not going to be critically important. We're already doing some of these strategic connections. We've decided that the implementation is already happening. We don't have to do deep policy work on making these strategic partnerships, right? That's what you're deciding. But yeah, go ahead, Councilor Chenoweth, sorry.
It's okay either way. I guess I have a question kind of underlying this in what the intent and one of the potential pitfalls that I see. It seems like the intent in this is to try to create some structure that keeps us bound within a certain predetermined set path. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is that's also known as a rut. And so I'm a little concerned that, this is more of a generic statement and question, that we're not, I hope that in the process of developing this, we are also developing ways in which we can not be stuck in that rut that we've created.
Yes, absolutely. And so you are correct. What we don't want to do, so discipline in the absence of innovation is a rut, right? So it's like yin and yang. There's a balance. You can't have innovation without discipline. If you're not consistently driving a certain process, for example, you don't have data to collect to see if you're effective, and you can't innovate strategically. And so what we're working on is getting the discipline to where we can laser focus, and then that's what Plan, Do, Check, Act is all about, right? If we laser focus on something and we're getting feedback that's saying the results are not what we expected, then check and act. We do something different, right? And so to commit and to use discipline to implement something will give us data that will enable us to innovate. Does that make sense? Great. Okay, any other questions?
Well, Wendy, I also think it's very important to understand that where we got the information, it wasn't something that was thought up by council, but we went out and did a strategic plan in talking to over thousands of people. And so it's not an agenda of anyone. It is the collective thought process of the community. And it's taking us a little while to get through that. We'd hoped to have been maybe in 2020 much further along this path, but then COVID hit us. And so we can't, I don't think that we can't put aside the data that we've collected without going through this type of a process.
Yeah. And to Remy's point, it's when you see it in a spreadsheet and we said these were priorities that we were going to implement, it's overwhelming even to think of evaluating them. Right? Imagine thinking about implementing them effectively, which is why we're doing this exercise. Is we're gonna throw things out. We're gonna say not throw things out like they're not important, but if we put something into year 5, like I want to work on this, I want to keep it on there, but I'm saying that it's really for urgency, probably year 5 is going to be fine for this priority, right? If we put it out on year 5, then we can focus on the real needle movers for this year and not be doing a disservice to the priorities that were put on there that might in year 5 become the top priority. You know what I mean? Like things if you every year evaluate this way, things are going to move around. But you will, if we made progress on only 5 things and we did it super effectively, next year we make progress on another 5 super effectively, we're going to be moving down this list, and we might wind up with the list changing over time, but we're going to be making some significant progress. If we're just overwhelmed by the list and we aren't internalizing and processing it, we're not going to be making any progress at all, right? So even just understanding like Remy's reaction, like that is a lot of priorities we had in there. How are we going to make some sense of it? Right? Okay. So the last two again, so remember the urgency is 1, 3, 5, and 10. Don't be afraid to put a priority that you think can wait until later. It's not urgent out 3, 5, or 10 years, and then we'll revisit it later, right? That's what you're saying when you're saying that, is we can wait on that. And then the level of importance, the last one, is also a 1 to 5 rating. Now, in order to make the metrics work, 1 is the most important and 5 is the least important. So important to make sure you have the rating scale correct. And so a 1, you're asking yourself, how much impact will this have on the town? And how important is it to realize that impact? So you're looking for, this is the most important question for looking for the 20% that's going to produce 80% of the results, right? And so this is on a scale of 1 being the most important, 5 being the least. If it's going to be like affect a small contingent of McMinnville and it's not really going to have a lot of leverage to create a lot of other positive benefits, then you might rate it lower, right? Even if it would be a nice to have, it's not going to be as much of a needle mover as one that has a broad impact. And if we fix this, it's going to fix like all of these other things, right? So that's what you're looking for in that rating column. Questions on that? Oh, look at the time. So as you're going through this, I encourage you, we have never done this before. We have never done it with this data. I encourage you to call and we might do some course corrections. The important part is the journey and the exercise of thinking about these priorities so that we can work towards getting some goals that are out of this work that are the most, again, the 20% that's going to produce the 80% of results, the most important and urgent things for us to look at this year so we can be laser focused and know if we're on course. Okay, so unless you have other questions on this, I'll go back to the presentation.
I do have one question. If you scroll down a little bit, sure. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, and stop. Oh, you went too far. Go back up. It's E4 is what I'm looking for.
E4.
C.
Hold on.
C.
C, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. E4. Ready.
Nope, that wasn't in. Go up a little. What I noticed on, and maybe it was down in D. What I noticed is there's a couple of times where the exact same thing is written in 2 lines.
Oh, okay.
Word for word. And maybe it was down in D. Okay.
We'll clean that up once.
My question is that just an accident, or am I supposed to realize that there's 2 different things?
It probably is a typo. I did this manually. I ported it over. It was late.
Well, it
So I find duplicates.
different topics, and then there's under each topic there's different subtopics, so it could be the same thing but for a different topic too.
Go down. I mean, it was literally word for word, but that's okay. If it's just a duplicate and I'm supposed to ignore it, I'm good.
Yeah, I would imagine if it was word for word, because it's a duplicate, and you will see the original. This is all directly from the strategic plan. So if you wanted to check, you can always look at the original. We just took it directly out of the strategic plan work, and so it's listed in there. Any other questions on this document? No? Okay. So I'll stop screen share and go back to, here we go. Okay, do you guys see my screen again? Yay, okay, thank you. Okay, and the deadline for doing this work, unless you let us know that you need a little bit more time, but we'd love to have it back to us by Friday. The reason is because we're going to process the data and prep for our Wednesday work session. But let us know if you're struggling to do that. I know people have lives, but we would like to see it back on Friday at noon. So if you guys, and we can check in with you at that time if you're struggling with it or you need some help. That will give us time to do our work, to be prepared for the work session on the following Wednesday.
I can tell you that's wholly unreasonable for me with my workload, with the amount of homework that just came with this, with that's just my week is already packed, and I'm going to need a minute to be able to go over this thoroughly if to give it the attention that it deserves.
Yeah. Okay. So let's we'll regroup. And do you think having the weekend would be sufficient, or are you thinking even longer than that?
I mean, I think the weekend would be sufficient. It's not a weekend for me in that I work on weekends with my regular business. So, but I think that would be enough cumulative days that I could reasonably work through it.
Okay. Well, I'll regroup with Claudia and Jeff, and we'll come up with a more reasonable timeline. I hear you. We want you to be able to do it and feel good about having enough time to do it, Remy. So we'll try to come up with a more reasonable timeline and send it out, and let us know if that still is of concern for you. We might, need to look at, we're just trying to make sure we're ready. It was tighter than I realized between this session and a second work session. So the turnaround time is faster than I expected to when we actually worked out the data collection period. So we'll extend the deadline, talk with Jeff and Claudia about extending the deadline to sometime early in the next week to still be able to give us enough time to process it.
Wendy?
Okay. Yeah.
Are we going through the entire spreadsheet, or are we just going through what's highlighted?
No, so you should look through the whole spreadsheet, but what I was saying to Remy, if you can rule out things that you're like, nope, that's not top priority for me, you're zeroing out stuff that you feel like is already implemented, or is, answering some of those questions that zero them out, so we'll go through more thoroughly the ones that you've determined are the higher priority ones, right? So don't just go by the highlighted ones, because that was work that we had done before. And as we just did with Remy, of course you would go through the highlighted ones, because previously in the work that we had done together, we decided those were top priorities, but those might not be the only top priorities for us, right? For this year.
Yeah, I lost my audio and.
Oh, okay.
Sorry for the redundancy.
That's okay.
And I just saw lips moving. I didn't get to hear what you were saying before.
And you couldn't read my lips.
And time frame wise, I mean, for me, yeah, probably Mondays as soon as I could get to with whatever.
Okay. So so I'll talk with Claudia and Jeff, but we'll probably start with Monday. And if we're still having some trouble, this is the first time we've ever done it, right? So we're going to be flexible about making sure that we can get it done and get it done effectively. So let's shoot for Monday if that works with Claudia and Jeff, and we'll include the adjusted deadline when we send out the homework materials.
So Wendy, one clarifying question. We will receive this in a spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. We will fill it out and then save it and send it back to someone at the city, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
okay.
Claudia, Jeff, and I are going to collect them. So if you'll just email it back once you're done with it. And Claudia is going to we're going to include all of that information in the email that she sends out with the homework materials too, so about how to return it. Okay, so this just is going back to reminding us what we're doing in this work. We're looking at aligning our leadership around the vision. So just doing the thought work to, like Remy asked those great questions about well, what does that mean to be collaborative? Is it me being collaborative? Is it the city being collaborative? Those are the kind of questions that will internalize what living those visions mean to us as leaders at the city of McMinnville. The data component is getting the most important priorities and making them very specific, measurable goals that we can track, hold ourselves accountable, and track whether or not we're being successful. And what that our intention is that will create traction where we're bringing discipline and accountability into the organization so that we can effectively move forward towards our goals that we established in that strategic plan. So any questions? What time is it? I think I'm almost out of time.
Wendy, this is Jeff. Not so much a question, just maybe a remark to help folks with respect to the pressure of doing the homework. Our executive team is going to be going through a similar exercise with this spreadsheet, and we would expect that there are issues in the strategic plan that you're not aware of, either because we've been working on it at a staff level or it wasn't one of the top 10 or 11 priorities that the council identified. So, if you get to a point and you just think, I don't know anything about this, I don't know if it's a priority, mark it 0 and move on, and focus your energy on the things where you have more knowledge and more comfort level about. And what we'll end up getting is some things that you don't necessarily know a whole lot about. We may have already done some work, or it may really be something that we haven't worked on yet. And so once we bring together all the results, you'll have a much fuller picture of where things are in terms of progress, and any areas where there seem to be sort of data disagreements, we'll work through that in the next session.
Exactly. And that is a great point, Jeff, that the department heads are going to be providing us information as well. And so we don't expect you to know, and that will give us feedback from you regarding, like, if you're zeroing it out, clearly you're focusing your energy on the ones that you've already are prioritizing, right? So it's going to be a part of data from the whole team, including all the department heads who might know more about certain priorities than we do. Okay, any other questions? It's 7 o'clock exactly. If we end right now, we're like just on time for the next meeting. But don't feel afraid to ask questions. Any questions?
Thank you, Wendy. Excellent job.
Thank you. Great. I'm excited. Okay, well, thank you guys.
Okay.
We're done with this meeting.
Yep. So we will move right into our regularly scheduled city council meeting, January 12th, 2021. And we will call this meeting to order, and I'm going to recite, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. It's something that we've gotten away from on a regular basis. So I have a flag to my right, and we'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We will be working on some type of flag to flow during this time moving forward, but we did have one in the council hall today. Claudia, do we need to take a roll call again?
We're all here, but I can do it. Councilor Drabkin?
Here.
Councilor Garvin?
Here.
Councilor Geary?
Good evening.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Here.
Councilor Peralta?
Here.
Council President Menke?
Here.
And Mayor Hill.
Here. That takes us to our next area of business this evening, and that is going to be a proclamation and recognition for exiting City Councilor Wendy Stassens, and we truly want to recognize Wendy for her service. And I'll tell you, Wendy was an individual that replaced me on City Council 4 years ago when I became mayor, and I was so impressed with her background, her commitment, her education. Is one that really lends itself to city government and to the strategic thinking that we do in urban planning and those types of things. And so I would like to, again, give my sincere appreciation and recognition to Wendy for a job that has been so well done. This evening in our work session, we had an opportunity to go through EOS, and there's been a few of us that have been working on this for over 2 years, and now we're to a position where we're implementing it, and the structure is going to get us to a place, I think, that we're going to be even that much better as councilors and as a city. So what I'd like to do at this point is I have a proclamation, and there wouldn't be anything that would be, I'd truly like to have Wendy standing in front of me and being able to shake a hand and give a hug and for recognition, but in today's environment, it's a bit different. So we'll get some of this proclamation to you, Wendy, and we have some other things for you. But if I could, I would like to read this proclamation. Whereas Councilor Stassens was elected as a city councilor for Ward 1 and served one 4-year term beginning January 2017, and whereas Councilor Stassens has volunteered for and served on the City of McMinnville Planning Commission and acting as vice chair of the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee and various other city and community committees, the task force assignment, and whereas Councilor Stassens has represented the building community well within this McMinnville has been a strong advocate for livability, and whereas Councilor Stassens' family has been a strong support system for her over her many years of service, and whereas Councilor Stassens' sense of service and commitment to the community is valued by the citizens of McMinnville. Now, therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville, do hereby proclaim January 12th, 2021 as Wendy Stassens Day in the City of McMinnville, and urge citizens to reflect on the passion and leadership of this caring and community-minded councilor. In witness thereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of McMinnville to be attached this, the 12th day of January 2020, signed Scott A. Hill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. That is good.
Well, let me just, we have one other piece of recognition for you, and this is a kind of a memo of service from the city to you, and it has the logo of the city ingrained at the top, the thing that we love so very much. But it says, honors and thanks, Wendy Stassens, for years of dedicated, professional, loyal, outstanding service to the citizens of McMinnville. City Councilor, January 2017 through December 20th, December 2020, presented by the City of McMinnville. I will get this to you, Wendy. I think what I'd like to do at this point is just have an opportunity for Wendy to respond, and then any city councilors that would like to just share some of their thoughts can also do that. So Wendy, we'll turn it over to you, and then any other members of the council that would like to add a few words.
Sure. Well, I will, I'm very honored. I've never had a day named after me. That's super special. And so thank you so much. I will say from the bottom of my heart that the feeling is mutual. I feel like the journey with the city has been has been joy-filled and full of challenge, but very deeply meaningful work. So it's not an experience that I will soon forget. It has become a part of who I am. And so I am grateful for the opportunity that I've been given to be able to be a part of this amazing city. So thank you very much. It's been an honor.
Thank you, Wendy. Any councilors like to share any thoughts at this time? Go ahead, Remy.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Wendy, I want to just take a moment to say that it was an honor to serve with you on the McMinnville Planning Commission, and it's been an honor to serve with you on the McMinnville City Council. Your ability to stay, as the words that you were just using in our work session, laser focused, your ability to stay laser focused on criteria and policy and what we are allowed and not allowed in terms of considering things, especially over the many years when we've had a lot of emotional topics come through the council. Your ability to push all of that aside and stay really focused on the goals and the criteria have always impressed me and been inspirational. And beyond that, you've always done it with a smile and kindness and a wonderful attitude. And it has never been anything but an absolute pleasure to serve with you. So thank you for all of your time and best of luck as you move forward. And I'm sure you'll find yourself in a leadership position in Bend in a very short period of time.
I'm trying to lay low right now. So.
And remember, Remy, remember her residence is still here in McMinnville. She's splitting time between McMinnville and Bend, so we've not cut those strings yet. Any other comments from council or staff? Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, a little in the same vein as Remy's. It was a pleasure serving under your chairwomanship on the Planning Commission, and always appreciated the way you ran those meetings and kept us on track. And then it was a pleasure to join you on council. And I think I can't wax any more poetic about you, but I would say I've always appreciated and been impressed by your ability to come in with these just incredibly salient points after listening for long periods of time and just clearly grasp everything that I was trying to grasp as it was flying by me. And so your mastery of all the issues and your ability to sort of grasp the emotional points as well and just put a fine tip on them has always been impressive. And the time you've given me on the telephone to talk through things is I've super enjoyed and find all the time we spent together and the time you've given to the city really important. So thanks.
Okay. I have a couple of things to say back to Zach. One, you can still call me, even though I'm not on the city council.
You're going to be good.
Two, I'm going to train Councilor Chenoweth to bring an extra charger at all times when you go back.
Oh yeah, I was supposed to for all the battery power.
I took my responsibility seriously, and I'm sad that I'm not going to be back on the dais with you.
My city-issued laptop will be too.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Did I see Councilor Menke? Go ahead, Kellie.
Yeah, I just briefly want to say, having enough tenure, that I was among the people that voted to put you on the Planning Commission initially and was thrilled to see you take Scott's place when he moved up to mayor. It's been a wonderful thing to have you on the city council. You're a dependable vote and a person that I very much appreciate and admire. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I did want to say something. I don't know if everyone knows that really Kellie and Scott are the reason I'm in city government. Kellie encouraged me to apply to go on the Planning Commission, and I almost didn't get voted onto the I almost didn't get chosen for the Planning Commission, but the one who was against me that they were probably going to go vote for withdrew his application right before they voted. So she didn't really vote for me. He withdrew his application to allow me to go on the Planning Commission.
Sure. Regardless.
Yeah. And he was way more qualified, let's just say. But anyway, I'm glad that he did, because I enjoyed all my time.
Adam, I see that you're unmuted.
Yeah, Wendy, I just wanted to say that I really appreciated all our conversations and all the way back from going through our first LOC conference together 4 years ago, and just working with you on policy. It was nice to work with you and how we could always have a fresh start on a new issue, even if we didn't agree on the last one. You were a joy to work with, and I'll definitely miss you on the dais. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
And Sal, I see that you've unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I just want to second a lot of the comments, but particularly what Adam said. I just appreciate that you view each problem as its own kind of unique issue and don't bring other baggage into it. You've been a real joy to work with, and I will certainly appreciate the contributions you'll be now making in 2 cities instead of 1. So, best wishes.
Thank you, Sal.
And then I think I'll just turn to Jeff to speak for the city on behalf of the city. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor. So for some people, when they make decisions, it has to make sense. And for some people, when they make decisions, it has to feel right. And Wendy is one of those people that almost always balances the two. I am not one of those people. For me, it's a make sense and move on based on the data. But Wendy really does a nice job of balancing those 2 perspectives in a really healthy way. I've really enjoyed my one-on-one experiences. Wendy is one of the many people who has taken the task of making me be a better person seriously, and I'm a better person and I'm a better city manager because of the work that I've done with Wendy as a member of the body, as well as the one-on-one work that we've done. I know that you're well regarded by city staff. I know that they appreciate the effort that you have put into this community in your various and sundry roles in volunteering for lots of committees and commissions, including your time on the council. And we wish you bon voyage, and we're going to be thrilled to continue to work with you in some capacity for at least the next year or so. Thank you, Wendy.
Again, Wendy, congratulations. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I really, really have enjoyed my time.
And as we spoke a little earlier today, you have the option now of pushing end meeting and going off to your family. And I think you're going to do that, right?
Yes.
Again, thank you, Wendy.
All right, thank you so much. Bye, you guys. Thank you.
Well, with that, we are going to have an opportunity for the oath of office for Mayor Scott Hill, Councilor Chris Chenoweth, Councilor Kellie Menke, and Councilor Adam Garvin. And so we will call on our municipal judge, Judge Noble, to administer the oath of offices at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if you would go ahead and raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Mayor, can you step over?
Okay. Oh, even better.
You can stand on this side and my
Mr. Mayor.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. I, Scott A. Hill, do solemnly swear or affirm that
I, Scott A. Hill, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support
the Constitution of the United States and of the State of Oregon,
the Constitution of the United States and of the State of Oregon,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
perform the duties of the office of mayor
perform the duties of the office of mayor
of the city of McMinnville during my continuance therein,
of the city of McMinnville during my continuance therein.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations.
Thank you so very much.
Councilor Chenoweth, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Chris Chenoweth, do solemnly swear or affirm that
I, Chris Chenoweth, do solemnly swear or affirm that
I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Oregon,
I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Oregon,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
perform the duties of the office of Councilor
perform the duties of the office of Councilor
of the city of McMinnville during my continuance therein,
of the city of McMinnville during my continuance therein,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you. Council President Kellie Menke, would you go ahead and stand and raise your right hand? Well, maybe we can still see you. There we go.
All right.
There
We'll
we
give it a try.
go. Perfect. And repeat after me. I, Kellie Menke, do solemnly swear or affirm that
I, Kellie Menke, do solemnly swear or affirm that
I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Oregon,
I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the very best of my ability,
perform the duties of the office of Councilor
perform the duties of the office of Councilor
of the city of McMinnville during my continuance therein,
of the city of McMinnville during my continuance therein.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilor Adam Garvin, would you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Adam D. Garvin, do solemnly swear or affirm that there we go. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Council. Would you go ahead and raise your hand and repeat after me? I, Adam D. Garvin, do solemnly swear or affirm that
I, Adam D. Garvin, do solemnly swear or affirm that
I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
perform the duties of the office of Councilor
perform the duties of the office of Councilor
of the city of McMinnville during my continuance therein,
of the city of McMinnville during my continuance therein,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Judge, thank you so very much. Thank you for what you do for the city as our municipal judge. And during this time of COVID, it has been a difficult getting to the work that you do, but we surely appreciate all that you do.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's a great team. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I would also like to welcome Councilor Chenoweth to the dais and being a part of us. Well-run campaign. I'd like to thank Councilor Menke and Councilor Garvin for signing up for another 4 years as we've had an opportunity to, let me see, it says it. There we go, I'm back. For another 4 years of service to this community. You guys do an excellent job. And so we're looking at 2021 and for 4 years moving forward on this. What we're going to do at this time is we're going to take a 5-minute break, which will allow Councilor Chenoweth to go back into the conference room and get set up for the remainder of our meeting. So let us come back at 7:28 and we'll continue the remainder of our meeting.
I know you may even get hugs. Let's try it. Check that out, man. You get me and I'll pick it, but I'm taking these out of state. Everybody I'm just a
Well, I have 7:28, and so I will go ahead and bring us back into our regular session. And we had family here, and we took a few pictures. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to spend that time to do some ceremonial types of things. That takes us to item number 5, the election of a council president. And if I may, I brought a page out of the charter, the city charter, and in section 4, section 19, let me read what the responsibilities of the president of the council is. At this first meeting, after this charter takes effect, and thereafter at its first meeting of each numbered year, the council shall elect a president from its membership. In the mayor's absence from the council meeting, the president should preside over the council. Whenever the mayor is unable to perform the function of his or her office, the president shall act as mayor, preside over council deliberations, have authority to preserve order, enforce the rules of the council, determine the order of business under the rules of the council, and continue to vote as a councilman. And that's resolution number 1978 through 47. And so that is the responsibility of our city councilor. And so at this point, I would truly like to take the opportunity to thank Council President Kellie Menke for her service. She has been gracious enough to serve for 4 years as the length that I have been mayor, and I so much appreciate her efforts, her wisdom, her experience, and being willing and able to step up and represent the city so very well as council president and representing the council. So Kellie, I acknowledge all that you've done, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Okay, We now will undertake the election of council president. We will begin with nominations. Any councilor may nominate another councilor. A councilor may nominate themselves. Nominations do not have to be seconded. If a councilor is nominated but does not wish to be considered for council president, that councilor may decline the nomination. When the nominations appear to have been stopped, I will call for any more nominations. When I hear no additional nominations forthcoming, I will close the nominations. I will then read the names of the nominees. Each councilor will vote for one nominee. If one councilor receives a majority of the vote, I will declare the results of the vote. If no councilor receives a majority, the councilors will vote again. We will continue this process until one councilor receives a majority of the vote. No nominees may be dropped from consideration unless they voluntarily withdraw themselves from consideration. Does any councilor want to make a nomination for council president? Councilor Menke?
Yes, I would like to nominate the Councilor Remy Drapkin, who is the senior council member after myself.
Thank you, Kellie. Are there any other nominations from the councilors? I will call once again any nominations from the councilors. Hearing that there are none, I will declare that the nominations are closed. And we have one nomination, and that of Councilor Remy Drapkin to serve as the council president. I will ask the city recorder to take each councilor's vote.
Councilor Drapkin?
Aye.
Councilor Garvin?
Remy Drapkin?
Councilor Geary?
Not even a tough choice. Remy Drapkin.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Could you repeat the choices, please? Aye.
Councilor Peralta?
Remy Drapkin?
And Councilor Menke?
Councilor Remy Drapkin.
And so I declare Councilor Remy Drapkin as council president by a vote of 6-0. Congratulations, Remy. It's going to be great to be working with you. Okay. That takes us to our next item of business this evening, which is a presentation. And we're going to have a branding project that's going to be brought to us this evening. We're going to take a look at this opportunity and are going to call on our human resources manager, Kellie, to present. Kellie, if you would present to us.
Of course, thank you. Good to see you all. I feel like it's been a while since we had the holiday season, so it's nice to see the full city council together again. I'm really excited to introduce this presentation tonight. If you've spoken with me since I've started at the city, our logo and overall brand has been something I've wanted us to look at updating. And I'm happy to report that we're doing that right now. I'm not going to actually lead this presentation, though I am here with Noelle, who is in our community development department. We're here to facilitate some questions that might be about process, but I would love to introduce Jen Wick. Jen is the designer who is leading this process, and she's got a slide deck prepared for you all, so I will turn it over to Jen. Oh, you're on mute, Jen.
Hi, everybody. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me make sure that I'm in present mode and that everybody can see the presentation. Can everyone see the presentation? Great. Yay. I had originally wanted my teammate on this, Nicole, let's see, with Factory North to say a few words, but I'm not sure if she's
I'm here. My video is not working. It says that the host has stopped my video.
That's fine. I think,
but I am here.
I'll just go ahead and I'm going to have Nicole kind of kick this off because of her experience with Visit McMinnville and just the, she's been working with the city of McMinnville for quite some time. So I'm going to let her begin and then she's going to pass it to me and I'll move on from there.
Thanks, Jen. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. So we have this presentation that we are going to go through, and here is a little agenda. Oh, great! Here's my video.
Here, I'll just move to the next slide because I know we want to keep this as brief as we can. So I'll move right over to you.
Sounds good. Hi, everybody. Now that you can see me. So I just want to do a little bit of introduction of myself. I know I see a couple of you out there that I have met before, so nice to see you all again, and then nice to meet some of the new faces. So my agency is Factory North. We've been working actually with Jeff and Kitchery at Visit McMinnville since 2016. And then a couple of years ago, in 2018, we set out to build a strategic creative plan and tools to promote McMinnville as a year-round travel destination. So together with the Visit McMinnville team, we've been doing a ton of work for the last couple of years, and hopefully I've seen you around town. But in order to do all of that, we did a ton of research of similar destinations. We did some tourist surveys. We spent a lot of time getting to know the community and the city overall. And from there, we designed the new brand identity package that hopefully you have all seen. We've defined the brand voice for all the travel marketing communication. And we created a series of marketing campaigns that resulted in magazine ads, billboards, radio spots, commercials, and a town anthem video that we are super proud of. And so taking all that history of working already with Visit McMinnville and knowing the town so well, we were excited to have the city team come to us for the help in the city rebrand. So I'm partnering with Jen, the designer on the team, because she has a lot of civic design and academic experience. And so I feel like we are the best team to do the best work for you all. So Jen's going to take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Nicole. I am Jen Wick. Just a brief introduction about my work. I'm WBE certified in the state of Oregon, but I think one of the reasons why I'm excited to work on this project is just I've done a lot of public-facing design projects, and those are my favorite projects to work on. I helped with some work for the city of Portland, helping to rename and rebrand one of the bureaus of the city that has 26 departments. They really struggled with cohesion among materials, and so creating just a streamlined system for them. I do a lot of work for the colleges in Portland, and I'm the art director of Oregon Humanities, which is a statewide humanities project. And I've been a design partner with Regional Arts and Culture Council, RAC, for about 8 years. So those are some of the projects that I've worked on. I did want to show just a couple of visual slides that gave us a feel. Oftentimes these presentations are a little more fun when you can see something or get a feel for what we're talking about today. And so the Office of Neighborhood Involvement was a bureau of the city that had a real mismatch of materials, and with the 26 programs, some were branded and some were not. And so they hired me to work with their leadership team to engage in both a public and a collaborative process to help them bring everything together and create some tools for them. So that's the sort of before and after. Some of the things I created for them was a brochure around the rename, identity system, stationery package, also slideshow presentations and flyers, things that they could do in-house without design programs, but with, Word documents and PowerPoint and things like that. So here's some other materials. There's some accessibility language kind of baked in. But a lot of buy-in with their, the whole team, which was really satisfying. Another project that I worked on was a few years ago, Josephine County residents voted to fund a permanent library district. They needed tools and visual guidelines along the same lines, where what they had was just not sufficient with the level of communication that they were looking to put out. And so they needed a boost for those materials. But I was able to pass on to them a suite of things that they're able to produce goods, communication pieces in-house. So now I want to just talk a little bit about what we're doing for the city of McMinnville. And, first of all, what is a brand, in the way that we're talking about it. And so the way that I'm thinking of a brand right now is that the brand is a personality of an organization. Normally we think of it being a business, but in this case, it's really about the city. It's the first thing that you think of or how you feel when you see a logo, interact with them, engage with their services, or get communication pieces from them. But the brand is also the relationship that an organization has with the public, how they communicate, and can be captured by the images, symbols, and products of that organization. And so for the city of McMinnville, what I'm thinking of as your product is essentially public service. Here's some of the project goals we have for this branding project. One is education through communication, to provide practical information about city services and what the city does or can do for them. To connect and engage, we want to connect people to the city and create opportunities to engage residents from all backgrounds and ages. To optimize the collateral, communications with design best practices, increasing efficiency and strategy for both digital and print, and unity in the design system. So to build a sense of unity between the city departments, which cultivates a strong sense of community pride and a cohesive sense of place throughout McMinnville, and I would say within the city system as well. So what are some benefits of this branding system? A design system creates cohesion. The tools and templates we'll be creating should make it easier to create assets and communication pieces easily. A good design system is recognizable and accessible, leading to clearer communication. And the truth is that people respond to good design, and what we're meaning by good design in this case is clarity and resonance. We want consistency across the materials, which communicates maturity, authority, and trust. And good design can engage, inform, inspire, and motivate. So here's some of the things that we're keeping in mind specifically for this project. Every project is different. These are the McMinnville values that we're bringing to the work. That the community needs and values are important to us. So we're having lots of conversations with the team around what needs to happen to engage everybody. Collaboration and partnership. We want all stakeholders to be heard and considered. Service, that the branding and tools are oriented to serve this community and these departments that are going to be using them. And accessibility and clarity. All our communications will be easy to read and understand for a variety of users. So what is it that we're doing specifically? A logo for the city of McMinnville, and we're creating individual logos in the same typeface design for each of the city departments. So everything will feel of the same family. Typography system with easily acquired supporting fonts. I would also mention that we're looking at accessibility of readability on those typefaces as well. A color system. The illustration icon system, a visual identity guidelines document, letterhead template system to work across all 9 city departments, a press release mock-up using the letterhead design, email signature template, slide deck templates, and a postcard mailer template. So here are some considerations, some things we're thinking about. We want to recognize the challenges, potential challenges and opportunities of doing branding for a city. Individuals may not always trust new design. That sometimes takes time. We know that. Getting folks to adapt to new templates and assets needs to be easy, fun, and worthwhile. What we're creating, someone should just be able to dive in and create something from it. We want everything we produce to follow good design guidelines, which is clear hierarchy, legible, official feeling, and recognizable. Designs follow a clear usefulness and utility. We're not putting a lot of things in here that are extraneous or frivolous, I guess. We want the design tone of these pieces to be able to move from playful, such as like Parks and Recreation, to middle of the road to more serious. We want, citations to be very clear and to be, have a clear utility. We want to be respectful towards existing community pride. We're not creating something that's super trendy and radical or kind of something that's going to be dated quickly. And accessibility is at the center of all our communications. So here's where we're at. We've created, with our team that we've been working with, we've done a survey, and the first thing that we did was an audit of all the materials so far. This was just to kind of assess what the needs were, not so much of a critique. The survey is happening right now. We're going to get, I think we're getting answers back by the 19th. Concepts and art direction is already underway, but that's kind of in process. From there, we'll have lots of check-ins with the team to make sure that we're on the right track. From there, there'll probably be a couple iterations. We'll move to final deliverables and the style guide, create the templates, and then do a bit of training on how to use those templates. Thank you. That's everything. Thanks.
We've built in some time for questions. I know, and Noelle knows, that this is a really new concept for the city of McMinnville. We've had our current logo with the tree and the grapes for a very long time. But the concept of branding and being very thoughtful and intentional with our communications is new. So no question is dumb, and there's no question too small. So please ask questions. We're not asking the council to approve anything tonight. This is purely informative, but we do want to engage you all in this process.
Kellie, the first question that I might have is, as we've had an opportunity to work with Visit McMinnville and quasi-ly with the city, we went through kind of the cityscape process with Sea Breeze, I think it was, and we got an idea of what branding could look like, and not only how we could brand the city and our communications, but how we could brand neighborhoods and locations. Could we talk a little bit about how this project is going to dovetail with the work that we've already done?
Definitely. So that's actually a really good segue into some of the finances about the project. So Visit McMinnville is a huge partner in this, and they are funding this initial design phase. So we're grateful that we're able to work with them. The city of McMinnville itself is going to be responsible for the implementation of this new brand. So we'll get a great design from Jen and Nicole, and then it's on us to go and put that to use within the city. There have been projects about signage, about wayfinding, and we're hoping to kind of work within those projects to use the visual guidelines and the logo that we'll come up with to inform that. So the goal is that any signage work that we do, any kind of communications that we do, is all informed by this brand that we're developing right now.
Thank you for that correlation of efforts. Jeff?
Kellie, could you or somebody on the team talk a little bit about how we're going to balance the already strong identity that some of our departments and work group have, and allow that specific identity to still be maintained while working on a more cohesive brand?
Yeah, so one thing I noticed when I started here at the city of McMinnville is we tend to operate in some silos, and I think a lot of that is that we're geographically based in different parts of the city. And as such, a lot of our departments have a lot of pride in the work that they do, and they have their own logos or their own styles that they use right now. The goal of this project is that communication that comes from any of our departments is very clearly from the city. So if we have a logo in our police department where we have kind of a star logo right now with our values of the police department around the circle of that, we're going to keep those kind of common themes, but we're going to bring maybe the fonts and the colors into alignment with the greater brand picture. So at the end of the day, we will still have unique graphics and icons for all of our departments, but they'll be part of a more cohesive feel and look that we have. So when you get something from the code enforcement team or from the city manager's office, it'll be very clear that it comes from the city of McMinnville.
Any other questions or comments from councilors?
Councilor Peralta has a question.
Sal?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Kylie, and everyone, Jen and Nicole, for bringing these issues forward. I just had a couple of questions. First, I guess a comment. I am not wedded to our 1990s dithered oak tree and grape graphic, but when I look at great brands, Intel, Nike, Coke, Pepsi, they don't change their brands very often. And the point of branding, it seems to me, is that it should be recognizable and remain recognizable. And yet I see a lot of organizations change their brands pretty regularly. And so I guess I'm just curious to hear your thoughts about that. Because I think in order to be recognizable, something does have to be consistent. So that's just sort of one general observation and question. And then I'm glad that Visit McMinnville's paying for the design portion of this. My second question is, how is this actually going to affect the wayfinding project? Are those signs intended to be city branded? Or as well, or are those going to be more Visit McMinnville branded?
I think that's a great question. I don't have an answer for you on that right now, but I'm happy to look into it with Kitchery and with our planning department to see kind of how we might plan to do that. So I'd like to get back to you on that one. But I think, Jen, if you want to talk a little bit about like the concept that we want to have a timeless design that we're not going to be updating and tweaking all the time, that would be really helpful.
Yep, I'm happy to. I think that's a great, thank you, Sal, for that question. I absolutely agree. And one of the things that we're looking for too is a branding system that's very reliable and very consistent, and that has typography that is able to be somewhat timeless and isn't necessarily so trendy that it is going to feel dated in a short amount of time, but also allows all of the departments to have some flexibility and some creativity in the way that they use them. Some of that might be like how the images are used, or how, that people are going to put their own spin on it, but that the container of everything is somewhat consistent. So yeah, our goal is a versatile system that is recognizable, but is really durable and really follows a clear utility. That it doesn't have a lot of flourishes that are going to start to feel dated, but that feels appropriate as a city brand.
The other comment that I have is that the other concern I often have with branding is that it carries a lot of additional secondary costs, because when I've seen companies that go and do rebranding, then oftentimes they attach policies to that, like we need to get rid of every piece of letterhead that we just ordered. Is that how you envision this, or are you seeing it more like we're going to go through our existing supplies and then sort of shift to the new branding, so we're not really wasting materials that we've already bought?
I think that's a great question to bring up. We have lightly encouraged our staff to stop purchasing things that have a logo on them. We do have some print materials that we can work through until this is done. And you know, typically when a rebrand happens or just a branding process happens, there's a pretty quick timeline to purge the old design and bring the new one on to avoid confusion. We have some constraints financially because we're a public agency, so we're trying to find kind of a method in between that, where we don't just scrub everything right away, but we have an implementation plan that might take a year or two to get through, and works within the budget that we have.
You know, I really appreciate that, Kellie. I would just say that from my point of view, minimizing those secondary costs would be really important to me, just because of the environment that we're in. So
definitely.
Yeah, our team agrees.
Yeah, and so just to follow up that, for instance, as we come up with a new brand and color scheme and everything that goes along with it, we've got a lot of vehicles that are logoed that have those color schemes, and we would put in place a system that would allow us to repaint or rewrap when we change stock out. So we wouldn't look to repaint the entire fleet, but because we regularly replace our vehicles, when we brought a new vehicle on board, then they'd be branded with the new vehicle. Or if we had to repaint a vehicle for other reasons, that's the time we would wrap with the new logo.
Another thing, if it's all right for me to chime in, because I think that is such an important consideration, you know, we're prioritizing Google Fonts, and a lot of the, which is the open source and usable in Canva or any Google Docs or Google Slideshows. And a lot of the materials we're creating are digital materials where, you know, essentially a lot of people don't use paper letterhead anymore, but they use Google, you know, Google Forms, Google Letterhead. Things like that can really help cut down those costs. What we're passing on are tools and toolkit that really should be very easy for people to use without much secondary or additional needs. You know, it would be easy to take the style guide and build on it in-house, essentially.
I think Jen brings up a really nice point that one of the main goals of this project is to improve our presence digitally. Most of the communications that our city sends out don't come on paper. Occasionally they do. We have program guides that we'll send out or mailers that we may send, but predominantly people engage with our city through our website and through our 19 different social media pages. So we're hoping to bring some cohesion to that, and all of those implementation costs are fairly low. We also have some dollars set aside in our IS budget for website upgrades, so we'll be able to handle it through that as well. So keeping the cost under control is definitely a goal of this project, but we also want to make sure we have a clean and professional appearance in print and online.
Kellie, I think Councilor Garvin has a question.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for the presentation tonight, ladies. I really appreciated the slideshow. And Kellie, I know Visit McMinnville is on the hook for this part of the project, but what is that dollar amount that they're paying for this? And then what is the anticipated implementation cost?
That dollar amount is a great question. Wait 1 second. I believe, and Kitri, chime in if I'm off base on this, I think it's close to $20,000 for the design process. She's texting me. Yes, that's right. I didn't have my notes up. And we're still determining what the implementation cost is going to be. So one thing we need to figure out is the existing budget that we have out of the IS department and any other funds available to work on digital updates. And then as we do replacements like Jeff had mentioned, we'll have our vehicle replacements come online. So that might just happen as we replace those. Really what we're probably looking at is some uniform purchases for the employees who wear uniforms, probably some kinds of swag items and business cards. So we're actually thinking that the implementation cost won't be too high. I don't have an exact number for you right now though, as we're still in our budget process.
Okay, and we anticipate to have logo designs back September, October-ish, is that what I heard?
We'll actually have them back way sooner than that. Here in the spring, we'll have a design complete and hopefully ready to present to the council. And then if we have existing dollars this budget cycle, we may be able to use some of those on implementation. Otherwise, we're going to be factoring that into our budget process for the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay, and you mentioned 19 social media pages when this is fully implemented. Is that going to all wrap into one city social media page?
That is outside of the scope of this project, but I think you bring up a really good point in that we have a lot of communications needs at the city, and we haven't focused on that quite yet. So I think all of us are kind of hoping to bring some standardization to those Facebook pages or Twitter accounts or Instagrams and get some kind of standardization there, but I'm not sure if we're going to see that number decrease or not.
Okay. And then where was this rebrand identified in the strategic plan?
Excellent question. So the strategic plan doesn't specifically call out branding, but this project does fall in line with a number of the goals that we have in our strategic plan. It falls under, in our opinion, the civic leadership, also community safety and resiliency. So for civic leadership, we want people to have civic pride and to feel that sense of pride about our city. And it's hard to do that when we don't have a cohesive brand. For safety and resiliency, if our community doesn't understand communications that are coming from us, they don't trust who the source is because the brand or the look and feel of that communication doesn't align with what they think the city is. There's less trust in our government to be able to carry out our services to the community. So those are the strategic goals that we believe this falls under. It also falls under city government capacity and our ability to prioritize and deliver our municipal services, and to do so with confidence and with confidence in our brand and have our community know who we are and understand who we are. We're also looking at the value of stewardship specifically. We are supposed to be strong caretakers of our assets and our public assets, and the city of McMinnville is one of those things. It is a trademark, and so we need to take care of that just as we would a park bench. And then additionally, we want to work with accountability, and we're thinking of that in the sense of having a style guide and kind of the more professional, easily recognizable feel of this logo. Having those systems in place and being able to ensure that all of our staff are using those is a way to hold each other accountable to our new brand. So we do think that this definitely hits a lot of the goals in the strategic plan, though it may not be specifically called out. The final one I want to mention, and this got brought up in the presentation a little bit, is accessibility. Typeface, print, and color schemes are a huge part of accessibility for our community, for people with visual disabilities or other kinds of impairments. And so we want to make sure that our logo is bold and recognizable so people know what it is, regardless of their abilities. That may not be the case right now. And another reason it might not be the case is we actually have like 5 or 6 versions of the logo that you're probably most familiar with, in addition to a number of other logos for departments. None of those are really great to look at if you've got a visual disability. And I think Nicole wants to chime in on this too.
I just wanted to add that we also want to bring an efficiency for you all, and that I think putting together these templates and these tools are going to be a huge time saver and stress saver of, creating new things all the time. And so we're hoping to just provide tools that will provide a lot of efficiency for your job.
Mm-hmm. And we have a project scope. I'm happy to share that with the council through our city recorder. And I think that'll kind of bring in some more information about the strategic goals that are part of this and sort of the reason why we're doing this project and how we're engaging with staff throughout. So I'm happy to share that with the council as well.
Okay, thank you. That was a lot of great information. Last question I have, which could really be answered by any three of you, is you mentioned the logo's timeless, but all brands have a sunset. So what's a typical life expectancy? Are we looking at 10 years, 20 years, 5 years?
Jen?
That's an excellent question. It's lucky if a brand can last longer than 10 years. I would hope that maybe this could go for 20 years, honestly, in terms of just that there's a beauty to it and that it is simple but elegant enough to last and stand the test of time. And I think that that's another thing that we're hoping for with the system is really that it takes you to your next round of growth, that it just, more materials can be created with it pretty reliably because the system has good hierarchy, the system is clear communication, and that it is just something that looks nice and that lasts for a long time. So it's always hard to forecast something like that, but I would hope, there's some rebrands that I've done that have lasted the last 10 years and aren't likely to change soon because they aren't so stylized or trendy that they start to look dated in a short amount of time. So that's kind of what we're aiming for in terms of that stylistically.
I also think with brands losing their style, a lot of times it could be because they're really flashy. And although I absolutely love the city of McMinnville, I wouldn't describe us as flashy. So the goal for a city government branding is to be recognizable, clear, and trusted. And those kinds of values in a brand are timeless in and of themselves. So the goal is to not be flashy, trendy, radical. We're not going to put an alien on it, even though I would like to do that. But we'll be timeless and classic. So I think that these will stand the test of time for at least 10 years, hopefully longer.
So just a sort of an interesting tidbit that's in part responsive to that, but also reflects something that Councilor Peralta was saying, that at least according to one article on the internet, Pepsi has redesigned their logo 12 times in the 122-year history of the company. And that doesn't include sort of drink-specific things like Diet Pepsi or Pepsi Max. So about every 10 years, they've been pumping out new logos over the course of their corporate existence.
Burgerville just had a rebrand too. That's really funny.
This may seem unimportant, but what is Pepsi Max?
It's on the desk.
My jokes just fail on Zoom.
Yeah.
of the time. I keep saying I'll stop trying, and then I try, and they just.
Is it like Crystal Pepsi? Was that a thing? I don't know. It was like before I was born.
I think I'm pretty sure it's right up there with New Coke, which didn't last very long either.
Well, thank you for answering all the questions. And final designs, is council going to get 2 or 3 renditions and everything else is going to go through Visit McMinnville, or are we just going to get a final proof, or how's that going to work?
Jeff, do you want to chime in on that? I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, we're going to see how the project evolves a little bit and see what kind of choices we have, and we'll definitely keep the council looped in as the project moves forward.
Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Zach?
Let me push lower hand. Push. Forgive this sequencing question. Is this effort already underway?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Second question. How do you see this tying into our discussion currently underway, and results don't exist yet for what our core services are? And that popped into my head partly because one of the deliverables or one of the benefits or whatever was provide practical information about city services. I feel like, I guess the answer could be the logo is going to apply to all dummy, regardless if it's core or not. So I may have answered my own question, and you can use dummy in your answer. But it was sort of, as we are having the discussion about core services, how do we know what our core services are and what's the value and what we're going to communicate? So can you just tell me what you've thought about on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So they're happening simultaneously, and so the goal of this project is to have really one clear, cohesive logo for the city, and then a series of graphics or icons within each department that go with that. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn on anything, but I don't think any of our departments are going to go away in our core services discussion. I would be really surprised with that. We may have some departments shift and merge as we evolve as a city. So we're kind of putting pause on pieces of this project as we work through those things. But yeah, I think they'll inform each other, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
Okay. I noticed you didn't call me dummy, but number 3 sort of dovetails to one of Adam's questions about sort of how is it going to come back to us or go through us or get to the final product. And my question was more specifically, what do you see as citizen involvement in that process?
That's a great question. So we're using a lot of the involvement, the survey work that was done throughout the initial Visit McMinnville branding process. And as we've gone through this initial kind of first few stages of this project, we've been really thoughtful in that, this logo isn't supposed to be just Visit McMinnville kind of zhuzhed up or zhuzhed down for the city. It's supposed to be reflective of what our city government is and what we do. So we're using the information that we've gotten from Visit McMinnville and their branding process, which included public involvement, along with staff involvement through this process. The staff involvement was the thing that didn't happen in Visit McMinnville because it didn't need to happen. But here, we have right now over 300 employees on the books, and we want to hear from them as we go through this process. A lot of those employees are also residents here. So public comment or public involvement happened along with the Visit McMinnville process through their survey work. We're incorporating a lot of employee engagement through kind of a larger project team of communications professionals or people who have communications as part of their roles in the city, and then through a survey that we're sending out to all of our employees.
Two follow-ups to that, and I think I heard them, but I'm just going to try and. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Visit McMinnville survey work? I'm not familiar, and I'm maybe sheepish, or as you explained it, it'll come back to me, but I don't remember the public engagement that they did. And can you tell me a little bit more how that relates exactly to this? And can you tell me a little bit more in specific how you're engaging the employees?
Yeah, so I'll touch on the employee part, and then Nicole or Kitchery, if you want to talk about the Visit McMinnville work, that would be helpful. So the core project team is Jen and Nicole and Kitchery and me and Noelle, who's on the call too. And so the 5 of us are working together closely on this project. We have a larger group of employees at the city who have communications tasks as part of their job duties. Those might be people who manage a social media page or who send out communications through the website or press releases or the like. Those folks are involved in a bit deeper level. We'll be using them for some more feedback throughout the process. And then all of our employees are engaged through a survey that went out to staff about a week ago, and we're getting responses that have come in on that pretty actively. I think we've got about 25 right now, and we're sending out a reminder. So if any employees are watching, please do your survey, and getting some really great feedback from staff on that. So we've got survey opportunities, and we've also got kind of a larger communications team that we're working with throughout the process. Nicole or Kitchery, if you want to talk a little bit about the previous work at Visit McMinnville, that'd be great.
I'm not sure if Kitchery's going to chime in or not. So we sent out a survey to all of the newsletter receivers that Visit McMinnville has, and that is, quite a huge following, as well as some other resources that we use to send out to the community. But that was more about tourism and like why people were visiting and why people would want to visit, or if they had visited McMinnville, some key points about the city. So we are using some of that as our, foundational information as far as just like what we learned about the city and what people loved about the city or expected about the city.
Yeah, the only other thing that I would add is that we also went through a pretty extensive process with our board of directors, and several of the folks on the call today went through that process, talking about what we should, how we should portray McMinnville publicly. And that was a really valuable process because we developed sort of 4 key areas that we focused on that reflected what McMinnville meant to them. And that was a mix of citizens, of elected officials, of business owners, and that really helped identify some of our needs moving forward, and really appreciated that process. So thank you for everybody who participated in that.
Not to push back a little bit, but I think from what I heard, this project's ties to the strategic plan was really a sense of community pride and cohesion and some public safety and stewardship efforts. I guess I just want to make sure that the data being harvested from there is genuine and germane to that end of the strategic plan, and tried and true long-term City of McMinnville residents feeling like they own that process, and not feeling like, and apologies to Visit McMinnville for being the sponsor of this, but not just an extension of the Visit McMinnville that now long-term citizens have to feel like they just are part of the marketing effort to outward tourists. I guess I don't know if I'm articulating that point well enough. I just want to make sure it's not an alienating process, and it's been relevant enough that the people that answered that sort of are aware that as answering that, they were also helping develop the City of McMinnville's new logo. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I understand that. Councilor Geary, I'm happy to go back and review a little bit more closely some of the survey work and the previous work that was done with Visit McMinnville, and then I can send this back out to the full council, so that you're kind of aware of our thought process going through this. I think I get what you're saying, and you want to make sure that we're not just kind of piggybacking on Visit McMinnville, but also, not just completely creating something and not involving community or staff or anybody in this process. So if you don't mind, I'd like to get back to you in an email or in a phone call, but I'll send that out to the rest of the council as well.
Sure.
And Zach, you may have more, but let me tag on to that response a little bit. The goal here is to make sure that the City of McMinnville has a clear image and a clear tool with which it can communicate internally and externally, and it won't serve us well if it just feels like Visit McMinnville Junior or Visit McMinnville feels like City of McMinnville Junior, because we really do have different audiences. We have a different suite of services, and we don't expect anything to come out of this effort that will confuse people with respect to the mission and the work that Visit McMinnville does.
Yeah, I like that answer. Some of the data input I'm hearing that's going into that process doesn't make me think that that's where we're headed. But if that's where we're headed, then great. And then the next question I had was, you talked about getting, you have, I don't know if you had a number, but you mentioned, there's all these departments have different logos and brands, and which is really great and cool in some aspects, but I imagine it's hard a little bit as for reasons you pointed out. The fact that we've got there from being at the original City of McMinnville logo, how do you guys anticipate managing the rollout of the new process, or do you feel comfortable in saying that we've got that ready to go? Once the new one's ready, this is how we're going to roll it out, and no more of 8 different signatures and logos. And good luck wrestling those cool hats away from Public Works. But how do you see that? How do you see that rolling out?
I agree with you about those cool hats, and I might snag a couple of those to keep for myself. So one of the things that I'm most excited about in this project is the ease of use of the collateral that we're getting. Collateral in the design sense is the stuff that we get. So our templates, our toolkits, those types of things. The goal of this project, and I think Jen's done a nice job of keeping this in her mind as we go through it, is that staff can use these tools quickly and efficiently. And that may not always be the case for our employees right now. I think if you've been here for a really long time, you kind of know that things are often this one folder over here and you can find them that way, or maybe you saved them to a desktop and that's what you use. But having an easy toolkit to use is going to help people just transition into this process. We're also going to have some change management strategies associated with this. And at the end of the day, the expectation is that staff will be on board and that they will be using these new systems in their communications. And there might be that kind of grieving period when we make a change like this, and we'll be really thoughtful of that. But at the end of the day, we do need to transition into this new brand. We're investing dollars into this. Visit McMinnville's investing dollars into this. And it's really critical that we don't kind of, I'm going to say this on the record, half-ass this project. So we have to do a good job and then we have to implement it. And so the expectation is that it will be easy to use and that staff will be on board.
Cool. Last one that popped up was, perhaps this illustrates my barren wasteland of technological understanding, but what is a Google Fonts?
Sure, I can answer that. There's a lot of typeface companies that create typefaces where you have to own the license to them. And every different desktop, every computer that owns that has that, uses that typeface needs to own it and purchase a license. Google Fonts are all open source, they're all free, and they work on a lot of different platforms. So it's a typeface family that's pretty robust in terms of options, but it can be used with Google, Canva, and a lot of other digital tools that people are using in creating things, so that anyone that has the toolkit can download the assets and use them without needing to have special licenses or pay any additional money for those.
I'm going to pretend I understood that and yield my time. Thank you.
Sometimes when you have a project like this, the expenses can get out of control because every computer has to purchase a font. So we'll not be doing that.
Kellie?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment here. Been a lot of questions, and I appreciate the questions. They obviously inform us more. But for a long time, I felt like the city needs to be improving the way it gets information out, and design is one of those ways of improving and getting people to notice what the city is doing. So I'm very excited about this. And as far as the fonts, I remember a whole 20-minute discussion on fonts when Visit McMinnville had their presentation. And it was really interesting because we looked at a number of different fonts and they were kind of talking about how did this font make you feel? I mean, is this, like an aristocratic font? Is this a friendly font? So there's quite a science behind the fonts that you use. And it was utterly fascinating. So hopefully maybe they'll give us a little bit of information on that. But I think this is a very worthwhile project and I'm really excited about it. And I think the whole staff and even the citizens that have participated will be enthusiastic about it. Just, it's a fun thing to do. And it's also something that will help the city significantly.
That's the goal. Hopefully, if we're at some level of normalcy as this project wraps, we can have an unveiling and maybe hook up some city councilors with swag and have a little celebration. So hopefully we can do something like that too to celebrate this big project.
Thank you, Kellie. Any other comments or questions from council? The last question that I would have is, when would we expect to have your initial bringing back information to us? I think you said spring, but is that primarily when we see that happen?
So our goal is in the spring. I think it's between March and April that we'll have a design, and then we'll be working on finishing out the deliverables and getting those together. But I think we should have a design to share as soon as March or April, hopefully. And chime in if I am jumping the gun, team.
No, you've actually got a first round coming up probably in a couple of weeks, at least a first round of designs for our internal team.
Councilor Chenoweth has his hand raised.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll drop my hand in a little bit. I'm using the space bar, so I can't do multiple things at once. So first off, thank you very much for the work that you're putting in. I appreciate it. I know having gone through branding and having gone through the process, I know there's a lot of time and a lot of effort put into it, and I appreciate it a lot. I pretty much have had all my questions already asked by one person or another, so I just want to reiterate a couple of things. One is, to Zach's point, what I heard from Zach, and I want to tag on to it, was the concern that long-term members of this community may feel like the logo that's designed doesn't reflect what they view this community being. And if all of the inputs are coming from outside of that core old guard, for lack of a better term, then you're going to have a feeling of people being left behind. And so I would like to second his kind of direction, and maybe have taken it just slightly a different direction, to ensure that feeling is addressed in the process. So that's number one. Number two, I would assume, based on the couple of questions by Sal and Adam regarding the cost of implementation, that hopefully we will see some actual numbers that will be given to the council, so that we can have an idea of what we're really looking at expenditures that we're spending on this kind of project. I would like that. And I just want to follow up and make sure that doesn't get dropped in the conversation. And then for questions, just their curiosities, and I'm not trying to get into micromanaging of all this, but how do the departments heads kind of feel about losing their, and has there been conversations with the department heads about them losing their, so to speak, identities that they currently have in this kind of folding together into one identity?
That's a great question. And I've got the notes about kind of your two comments as well. So we'll be sure to definitely include more budget information as we have it. As for department heads or departments maybe feeling a sense of loss or just feeling anything about this project, we've had numerous meetings with our executive team, and we've met with that larger group of employees who works with communications frequently. And we've had a lot of conversations acknowledging the difficulty in making a change like this. I think a few people mentioned here they're happy to see the older logo retired, but it's actually a logo that a lot of people hold very dear. And so we are very thoughtful about that and intentional in how we speak about this project and how we move forward in it to make sure that, the intent isn't to take away any department's identity. The intent is to have a unified front as a city and have our communications reflect that, while still having some room for individual departmental personalities. So that might look like, a more playful graphic that identifies our Parks and Recreation department, but maybe something a little bit more serious for our planning department. So we're working, with Jen and Nicole through this process to take those thoughts and opinions into account, but still involving staff throughout in their survey work and in that larger group of people working with communications. So we are aware that could be a sentiment, definitely.
So as a whole, you'd say they're on board?
I think most of them are on board, a majority.
Okay. And then my second curiosity question is, I being in business, I don't spend money unless there's something in it for me. So I'm kind of curious, what's in it for Visit McMinnville? that they're willing to dump their money. If this is not going to be Visit McMinnville Light, what exactly is in it for them?
Kitri, I'd love for you to hop in on that.
Absolutely. No, that's a wonderful question. Really, we see ourselves as partners of the city. We couldn't do what we do without all of the amazing work that's been done by the planning department to make this city laid out so well. And we couldn't do what we do without the Downtown Association, making sure that our downtown is such a vibrant business place. What we do is in alignment with all different areas. Our goal is to make sure that visually, what we feel about McMinnville, and by we, I mean my fellow citizens. I live here just 3 blocks from the where the mayor is right now. How we feel about the city is reflected visually, no matter what touch point a citizen or visitor has. I would love to see a brand implementation through the city that reflects the love that people have for this town. People feel really strongly about this community. They are so involved and so passionate. And I want to make sure that what comes from the city reflects how seriously the staff take their responsibility to their citizens, and make sure that the citizens feel like they're part of a whole. We did a lot of work going into building the Visit McMinnville brand. And to quote somebody else, I think it might have been Kellie, it is not our intention to make this feel like Visit McMinnville Junior by any means. We just want to make sure that at every touch point that the city has, whether that's citizens or visitors, that they're seeing something cohesive and something professional, and feel that the love that we've poured into our city is reflected back to them.
All right, thank you very much. Again, I appreciate all your work, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Any further questions? Kellie and Keem, thank you for the presentation. As you can see, there's much passion in our discussions around this. But again, this is such a critical piece. And, you know, as one that has been involved with Visit McMinnville from the very beginning, I'll tell you, the branding and the vision that we want to give through whether it be stationary letterhead or our signage, it's a dual process with all of our partners. Remember, Visit McMinnville is a strategic partner of the city, along with Mac Water and Light. We all partnership, and the stream of money that's providing Visit McMinnville is coming through the transient lodging tax, and the city's managing that. So again, we've got great partnerships from that perspective. So Jen and Nicole, thank you for your good work and your expertises and your partnership, because that's what we're all about, is partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to a public hearing that we will have this evening. This public hearing regarding vacating a portion of Southeast Chandler Avenue between Southeast Davis Street and the Southern Pacific Railroad. I'm going to ask if any council members need to declare a potential conflict of interest or reclusing themselves regarding this street vacation. Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I'd like to disclose I've been contacted by the party about potential future uses of the site, and find it out of abundance of caution I should just disengage from the public hearing portion, as well as the upcoming item relative to the same area later.
So you're going to recluse yourself from the discussion and decision making?
I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion as well as the decision making.
Thank you. Any other councilors want to disclose any potential conflict? Hearing none, then we will call on Community Development Director Mike Bissett to present to us. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. As the mayor noted, this is the public hearing to consider a vacation of Southeast Chandler Avenue between Davis Street and the Southern Pacific Railroad. The city has received a completed vacation application from Shannon Thorson that included the required signatures from all abutting owners, which include Shannon Thorson and Linfield University, and that included 31 of 44 affected property owner signatures, meeting the statutory 2/3 requirement related to a citizen-initiated vacation process. At your December 8th meeting, you passed Resolution 2020-66, initiating this vacation process and setting 7 p.m. this evening as the public hearing date and time to consider this matter. A notice was published in the News Register on December 29th and January 5th. The site was posted at both ends, notifying interested parties of the hearing. Notice was sent to all affected utilities. And we received one comment from McMinnville Water Light noting they needed to retain an easement over their public water line facilities. Otherwise, we received no public comments related to this proposed action this evening. So I would ask the City Council to conduct the public hearing and ask for any public testimony. And then considering that testimony, would recommend that you consider the adoption of ordinance number 5099, which is in your packet this evening. And with that, I'd answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mike? Seeing none, then I will go ahead and open the public hearing. And I will call on Claudia to call on those who have signed up to provide comments.
Mayor, no one has signed up to provide comments.
Thank you, Claudia. We will then again, we will close the public hearing. Okay, the action that comes from this will come a little later in our agenda this evening. This takes us to action item number 8, comments from citizens and anyone that would have interest to address the City Council may speak on any topic other than a matter that is in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for public hearing at some future date. We will limit comments to 3 minutes per person for a total of 30 minutes. If anyone would like to speak, use the raise hand feature in Zoom to request to speak. Once it's your turn, if you would announce your name and unmute your mic, and you can send a chat directly to City Recorder, and we will announce you. So I'll turn to Claudia. Do you have any requests for public comments this evening?
Yes. First, we have Mark Davis on Zoom. We'll go ahead and unmute your mic.
Welcome, Mark. And you are now unmuted. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I would like to address the $750,000 error in the franchise fee calculation disclosed at your last work session. And
I'm having a hard time hearing Mark. Mark, can you raise your volume, please?
Okay. Well, I'm one of the technologically challenged people. Hold on a minute here.
Well, you're coming across a little better.
Okay. Okay, I think I have reset it. Can you hear me better now, Sal?
Yeah, that's great.
Mark, thank you.
Okay. I'm asking to, oops, let me turn my video on so you can see me too. I'm reading this, but.
There you go.
Okay. I would like to address the $750,000 error in the franchise fee calculation disclosed at your last work session and the suggestion that it only became obvious recently. Here is an excerpt from the June 13, 2017 minutes of the City Council of the only testimony received during the budget hearing that evening. Quote, Mark Davis, McMinnville resident, commented on the franchise fee for McMinnville Water and Light. The McMinnville Water and Light budget that was already approved had the franchise cost at $2,017,658, but in the city's budget, it was $1,850,000. He thought it should be the same number, end quote. I made a similar statement to the McMinnville Water and Light Commission. The staff at each public body insisted that despite the $150,000 difference, that their budget number was justified. Obviously, the city never requested a reconciliation of the difference, and Water and Light never undertook one, a step which would have fixed the error more than 3 years ago. And no, I did not understand what I was looking at then. I made the incorrect assumption that staff knew what was going on, and the difference was just another example of the tendency of public bodies to understate budgeted revenues and overstate budgeted expenses. Sure, this shouldn't have happened, but I'm not particularly upset with staff, and current finance staff deserves credit for finally uncovering the error. But I am amazed that no one has been willing to call out the incompetence of the auditors in this fiasco. We have two public bodies spending tens of thousands of dollars each year on audits, and neither set of auditors found anything amiss with the amount of the franchise fee calculation for the last 7 years. My last audit experience was more than 25 years ago, so I am not current on audit requirements. But back then, auditors read the minutes of public bodies to look for information relevant to the audit. And what could be more relevant in the minutes than someone stating at a budget hearing that the franchise fee expense and revenue numbers were off by $150,000? I know the city prides itself on cooperation and partnerships, and in these troubled times, Lord knows we could use some more of that positive spirit. But you don't have to be mean-spirited to ask the auditors to publicly explain what caused their failure to find this material error, and I hope the council will do that. Finally, I'd like to note that that evening at the budget hearing, I was requesting that the city use some of the money that was available, $50,000, I believe was the number I cited, for affordable housing. I still think the need is there, and I would hope that you'd use some of that money for affordable housing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, for those comments. Claudia, next.
Next, we have Tynan Pierce via Zoom. We'll go ahead and unmute your mic.
Tynan, welcome, and we'll go ahead and unmute you in just a moment. Tynan, you are unmuted now.
Okay, is the new thing that there's no video?
Let's see.
Okay, cool.
There you go.
All right, great. All right, so just get right to the point on this one. So I sent you all an email earlier tonight. It should be in all of your inboxes. You received it probably around the time you were in your work session, so hopefully you have a chance to read it after this as soon as possible. Would be great. And it actually ties in really nicely to the fact that you just had swearing in of new members, and you also are talking about branding the city. So I haven't seen any official condemnation of the attacks on our Capitol from the city and from the mayor and from the city council members. And so I'm calling on you all to do that immediately. And I basically see there's zero reason not to. Tonight, the people that swore to uphold not just what happens in McMinnville, you swore to uphold what happens in the nation and in the state. So I would like to see that as soon as possible. And there's more information of how I feel about that in my email. But more so, I really want to make sure that you all have stated numerous times, and we just had a whole campaign about this, how seriously you take this office, what an honor it is to do this sort of thing. There is white supremacy rearing its head in our country, and white people in leadership in a predominantly white city, in a predominantly white state, have a even more burden of a responsibility to take action and to make bold, declarative statements against white supremacy. And then beyond that, yes, I also think that you should support the impeachment of Trump. Yes, beyond that, I think that you should support the expelling of basically any treasonous members of Congress. And yes, beyond that, I think you should support defunding the police. But to start, regardless of any of that, there needs to be a clear condemnation of white supremacy and a complete commitment to tearing it apart. We live in a state where there is active white supremacy groups, so please do not give us any of that line that says some, national faraway problem. This is happening in our cities, it's happening in our state, it's happening all over our country. And as we're branding our city, and you're talking about what kind of city we want to be, and you have started a DEI process and all this sort of stuff, well, let's do the real work. Let's put out a statement. There's plenty of city councils, there's plenty of governors, there's plenty of mayors that are making statements throughout the country. So there's plenty of, there's ice cream makers. Ben & Jerry's put out a statement. So let's do this. And if you don't, I'm going to really wonder why. And so it's going to be one of two things. Either A, you're a white supremacist, or B, you support white supremacy. So that's how I feel about it. It's how a lot of people I know and I'm talking to feel about it. So I hope to see this in writing as soon as possible, in whatever sort of letterhead, official letterhead that you all have, signed by all 7 of you. Anything less than that, in my opinion, completely unacceptable. So the fact that it's already been almost a week and I haven't seen anything like that, and if there is, if you already published something, great, but I haven't seen it. Anything less than that, really disappointing. So hopefully we see this as soon as possible, and then we can continue to build towards some sort of unity in our communities with the desire for accountability first. Thank you.
Thank you, Tynan. Claudia, next.
That's everyone, Mayor. I just wanted to state for the record, Tynan, we do have your email and we will put it for public information, or post it out for the record. Thank you, Tynan.
Thank you. This takes us to advice number 9 on our agenda this evening, and we'll have reports from councilors on committee and board assignments. I want you to know that earlier today, it may have been yesterday, we sent out committee assignments for 2021. Again, the top of the spreadsheet would be committees that are within the city, and then we are also tracking outside of city committees, other opportunities. I talked to Sal, and I know that he's on a couple of committees that I wasn't tracking. We saw an email from Remy that she has been appointed by the governor to the Oregon Wine Board as a director. Congratulations, Remy. Well done representing us there. So if you could send me any board or committee assignments outside of the city that you're involved in, then I will add that to the list. But with that being said, I think I'll just start at the top of my screen. And Councilor Menke, any reports for us this evening?
My report tonight, there's several things I could report on. I'm going to let Remy report on one of them since we're involved in it together. But I did want to mention that Thursday we're going to have a meeting on communal living for the Affordable Housing Committee. It's kind of an in-between meeting before the end of the month meeting, which is our normal one. And it just, if people are interested or want to kibitz on it at all, they're welcome to come. We're just discussing kind of a dormitory type of housing. We've been looking at different housing types and things that we could put into the code, and we're trying to make them as broad as we possibly can to appeal a low income type of housing, and then also it could be upper income type of housing, but it comes with pretty broad format. And we've been looking at Bend and Portland and some of the other areas to do this. It's kind of an ambiguous thing. So just wanted you to know that we are doing that particular research at this point in time. That's all I've got.
Kellie, is that meeting information out on the agendas for the Affordable Housing Committee? Is it within our documents?
We have been talking about it in the Affordable Housing Committee. We're just actually a smaller group that's talking about it a little more in depth and kind of trying to come up with how the code language should actually be written. So, theoretically, most people are not going to be attending that meeting, but
okay.
I bring it up because I think it's interesting, and if you might want to have some input, Tom Schauer would certainly be the person to talk to.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know, is if we wanted to get the sign-in Zoom information, how to do that. So having the council know that just to reach out to Tom could allow that.
We are quite a ways down the line on that, but it's an interesting form of housing, and there's all sorts of opportunities there. We're particularly interested, though, in saving money for people, so that would imply certain design elements.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's go over to Chris. Welcome this evening. I don't know if you have any assignments that you would like to report on tonight other than our meeting tonight, but welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. I have no committee assignments. The most important assignment of keeping my wife happy, I'm barely succeeding at this time. But otherwise, I have no report.
Thank you, Chris. Let's move over to Adam.
Yeah, the Whitecomb board hasn't met. Airport Commission, I'll refer you to your packet on some appointments we're going to make tonight for a few seats that commissioners decided to not seek their seat again. And so we have some new commissioners coming on. Had some great interviews with that. Looks like one of the interviewees is on this call right now as well. And I appreciated meeting with all the applicants and doing that with the mayor and Mike Bissett. And then we had an airport commission meeting last week, and we started to get through some of the minimum standards. So we're moving right along with that, and hopefully we can button that up before Mike departs.
Thank you, Adam. Council President Drabkin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have two committee reports. I'll start with affordable housing, launching off of what Councilor Menke was talking about. Just to expand a little bit on the subcommittee work, the Affordable Housing Task Force regularly launches subcommittees to take deeper dives into different projects that we are working on. And so that is the work that she was discussing, and then that work will come to the Affordable Housing Task Force at the last Wednesday of the month, which is our regularly scheduled meeting, and then we hope to have that work finally then coming to council in the form of a work session in February or March. I'm not sure when it is scheduled for. Additionally, Mayor, as you know, you and then Council President Menke and myself regularly attend Yamahill County Regional Leadership Meeting, and at that meeting 2 weeks ago, Councilor Menke was able to catch the ear of our federal delegation regarding upcoming affordable housing dollars through the most recent CARES Act. And not only were we able to get some additional information about potential funding that would be available for the City of McMinnville or City of McMinnville partners, but we were able to take it one step further, and you councilors will see in your inbox a letter that we sent inviting representatives from Wyden and Merkley's office for an upcoming meeting along with some nonprofits to hopefully basically create the table or the connections for some important upcoming work in regards to affordable housing and preserving affordable housing. And since Mark Davis was just on the line, I will say that some of this is specifically related to an email that he sent to our planning department a few weeks ago, calling attention to a property in McMinnville that's currently for sale, that is currently providing affordable housing, noting that the city should take an interest in preserving that affordable housing. And just want to say that responsibly we very much have, and I thank Mr. Davis tremendously for highlighting that. And it's kind of created, or what's come out of that has been a really good body of work, and I'm very excited about what we might be able to do from that point. And in addition, on affordable housing, we are watching as new dollars come through the state as well, or potential dollars, and looking at that for housing in McMinnville. And then I'm probably running out of time, so let me quickly go over the DEI committee. We had 29 applicants for the new DEI committee. There were 2 people, and whoever you are that are out there, there are 2 of you who did not provide any contact information with your application, and so I'm sorry. If you hear from us to schedule an interview, specifically if you hear from Kellie to schedule an interview in the next week, then you did provide your contact information. and because of multiple factors, but we are interviewing everybody that has applied and provided contact information. So that is a newer committee. It's a new committee that is being formed. This will be the first run of it. And then additionally, I do want to touch upon the fact that while council DEI training has been in the strategic plan, as all my fellow councilors know, that was implemented. Mandatory DEI training was implemented for councilors and staff this year, as with my new appointment to the Oregon Wine Board. I will be undergoing my 3rd DE&I training in 6 months. And as well, I have made DE&I training mandatory at my business. So I look forward to all of our institutions having mandatory DEI training and the benefits that come along with it. And those are my council reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Let's go with Zach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's see, Landscape Review Committee had just a standard business meeting, a couple of street tree removals, applications. McMinnville Community Media, which is transitioning over to Councilor Peralta, it looks like, according to your assignments. They're meeting Monday, the 18th. MacPac, we had a meeting last Thursday, and we talked a lot about site analysis on potential sites, developed sort of a list of what was important and guiding principles for site selection and sort of general criteria. Obviously, we need a big site, this kind of general topography. Created, Planning Director Richards gave a great presentation on sort of what would be a applicable metric to a site that would host this, and kind of ran the real potential sites. There's not a lot of 10-acre sites out there that are potential, and ran that through the matrix. And Linfield was a far and away, the Linfield site was far and away high scoring on that metric, and the MacPac gave us some direction on what places to look at and run those through an analysis and bring those back. Tomorrow, a pool subcommittee of a couple of people who have interest in good decision making on the pool are going to meet at the Halem Parks and Rec District's recent pool and aquatic center, just to kind of look at that, talk a little bit more specifically about pools and pool related activity. My son put in a vote for a skid steer pool. I don't know what a skid steer pool is, but that sounds awesome. Climate friendly and equitable communities Rules Advisory Committee is a state level group. I'm on. The next meeting's on January 25th. We met on December 16th, which was slightly after last council. So we discussed our outcomes. We sort of reviewed a list of potential outcomes and revised and refined and discussed. And then we talked about how it would roll out in a regional scenario planning way, which is really interesting and fascinating. And then lastly, McMinnville Active Transportation Concept Plan. Next meeting's February 18th, 2021. We had a first meeting a little while back, and again, just a reminder of what that is ODOT's coming in with a special pool project to look at the Highway 99 couplet from Northeast McDonald Lane to Linfield Avenue, which I was I guess blissfully unaware, or no, maybe just unaware of how dangerous that section of the highway is for non-motorized transit, maybe even motorized transit on a state level. Like it's top 10 dangerous section of highway. So it's looking at that to identify improvements in that 99 corridor that will result in a safer, more comfortable, and attractive place to walk, bike, and roll and facilitate transit use. So some good work being done there with city level community members and staff and consultants looking at that area. So that's my update.
Thank you, Councilor. Sal?
Thank you, Mayor. Council of Governments report. I'm happy to report that we have hired Scott Dadson as the new executive director for the Council of Governments. Scott has about 30 plus years of experience in city and local governments, and he came to the COG as the executive director for the Isothermal Planning and Development Commission, which was a North Carolina-based, essentially their equivalent to a Council of Governments for that region. The annual Council of Governments meeting is on February 17th. We're going to do it on Zoom. This Friday, we will be meeting to finalize the COG's legislative agenda. So if staff have any Council of Governments related legislative policy issues, including you, Remy, on your homelessness task force, if you could let me know before Friday, that would be really helpful. And I think that is it for the COG. Thanks.
Sal, could I ask just a quick question?
Yeah.
Have they already determined what the awards will be this year for February, or is
we're
that
deciding? We'll be deciding the awards this week, but the period for nominating is closed. We talked about that probably back in December.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Sal, for your report. Briefly, let me go over, I had an opportunity to attend an MWAC, Mid-Willamette Valley Transportation Advisory Committee meeting last Thursday. Just to update you on a couple of things, the MWAC was asked to support fully the Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Donald Aurora interchange, and it looks like ODOT is behind that. So that's a project that has become very, I would say, deadly. That intersection, one of the most critical intersections in the Mid-Willamette Valley. And so it looks like dollars are going to be brought to the table to be able to do both Phase 1 and Phase 2 from that perspective. We also were looking at the fundings of projects in the Mid-Willamette Valley. One of the projects that came up were the opportunity of looking at transportation between McMinnville and Junction City, hitting all of the roadways, the roadway of 99W down south, and that was one of the projects we were looking at with presentations from Cynthia of the Yamhill County Transportation, or the transit system. And so that was the kind of what we talked about from a transportation perspective. Let's move over to department heads, and I'm going to, Amanda, do you have anything for us this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing to report tonight.
Okay. Mike Bissett?
Thank you, Mayor. I heard a couple comments and questions as we started the work session about weather. Certainly that's been a big topic for us today. My personal rain gauge has us at about 2.4 inches of rainfall today alone, and well over 3 for the event. Lower City Park and Park Drive are closed because of flows. A couple of councilors noted we have a couple of large trees down in Lower City Park that we'll address when the water goes back down. This afternoon, we had a couple trees we responded to on Birch between 24th and 25th. We have 2 crews at Public Works on standby tonight for call out and 4 staff at wastewater. Currently, we're fine at wastewater. We're doing a good job managing flows in the system. And we do have parts of our treatment plant that are offline during the winter that we can store flow in if we reach capacity. So far we're looking good. You know, at the end of the day, when I talked to wastewater staff, they were hopeful that we wouldn't have to blend in our discharge and we'd be able to handle flows. Just briefly on the river, the 6 o'clock forecast for the South Yamhill River is predicting a peak of about 47 feet. At the 8 o'clock report, the river elevation was 35. That's the 47-foot estimate is just below where we start to see water in Dancer Park. We start to see water backing up into Dancer at about 48 feet. So we're paying close attention to those forecasts. We do have signage, sandbags, and shovels set up at the dog park, and we've pushed that information out on social media for folks that have the need for sandbags. All the materials are provided at no cost. So that's a brief weather report for you this evening.
Thank you, Mike, for that report. Let's go over to Kellie and have her see if she has a report. I know that there was a memo regarding the city evaluation process for the city manager in our packet. So Kellie?
Yeah, I actually don't have much to say about that. The memo, I think, lays it out there for you all. We'll be going through that process here over the next few weeks, and the evaluation for a city manager will be in a public meeting, as it has been in the past. Councilor Drabkin stole my thunder. I was going to update you all on the DEI committee, but she took care of that for me. I will reiterate that, yes, we had 2 applicants who did not put any contact information down, so we have no way to reach out to them. So if anybody's watching this and is concerned that they may have done that, please reach out and we'll be sure to get in touch with you. We'll be holding those interviews over Zoom next week on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and hope to have a recommendation for a resolution to the council, I believe on February 9th is the earliest that we can come back. So hopefully we can get that moving quickly for you all. A really brief COVID-19 update for the council. Vaccines are being distributed across the state and the nation, probably not at the speed most people would like. But we have 2 groups of employees in the 1A group, our police officers and firefighters. They are in the process of getting vaccinated right now. It is not a mandatory vaccination in our organization, though it can be in others. It is optional, but we highly recommend it. I don't have numbers on how many employees have been vaccinated or anticipate doing that, but it is being offered to police officers and firefighters at this time. If we end up having distribution plans for general service employees, we'll share that with the council as well. So that's all I've got for tonight. I'm sure you're tired of hearing from me by now.
Thank you, Kellie. Let's go to Heather Richards.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and councilors. 2 things. One, I wanted to let people know that our code compliance team is still offering the prescription pickup program for people who are not able to get out of their homes with our COVID numbers right now and need prescriptions picked up. Our code compliance team has relationships with all the pharmacies in town and is managing that program, and there are people still participating in it. And then also our co-compliance team is still partnering with YCAP to deliver food boxes to those that need it. So the other thing I wanted to let you know about is the UGB work. It did go to the county commissioners 2 days after it was at the city council. They passed it unanimously. And then we delivered it to the state on Friday, the 11th of December, and sent out the notice of decision to everyone who participated. People had until January 1st to submit an objection to the state for the city's project. The state did receive 1 objection. We were CC'd on it, which is the proper process. And so the state is reviewing that objection relative to basis, as well as reviewing our project. They have 120 days from when we submitted it to them to make a decision, which would take us to about sometime in March. I haven't actually calculated that date, but just wanted to update you on where we're at with the process.
Thank you, Heather. Let's go over to Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. So I do have a couple things to mention. The audit committee met earlier this week, and we discussed where we're at with the FY20 audit, which we've got an extension through March 31st to be able to complete our single audit. And then secondly, I just wanted to let folks know that we're having our budget kickoff meeting tomorrow with city staff. So the budget process is getting underway. So those were the items I wanted to mention to folks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Chief Scales? See, I'm down in the civic hall, and I can see those that aren't signed up on per se.
I know, I've been hiding in the dark forever, but you show up tonight. So, yeah. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just a couple quick notes. Kellie mentioned vaccines. We're in the queue right now with public health, and in fact, Captain Jasko advised tonight that we've got some dates and some schedulings that are going to be going out tomorrow for our staff. Friday, I know it's been mentioned a couple times, our first of a series of 3 DEI trainings start Friday, and we also have another session on Tuesday, I believe, with Time Moore, so we're excited to get those underway. Thirdly, next Friday, we're going to be swearing in our newest officer, and Daphne Plumeau will be coming on board. She's a lateral from Forest Grove. I don't know if I had mentioned that before, but she'll be starting with us. She's got a couple years of service. And then lastly, just for public, we don't spend a whole lot of time sometimes giving some shout outs to our team, but I wanted to offer a few names that we haven't met since prior to Christmas, maybe even Thanksgiving, but this Christmas season, obviously, our Shop with a Cop was not able to happen, but we had a number of employees that stepped up. I want to specifically mention Sergeant Kellie Desmond, Corporal Matt Peters, Officer Mark Serta, Justin Brenner, and Amy Kepler. All of the staff went above and beyond, specifically even during the Christmas morning when some of the staff went out and provided gifts to families that were in need. I especially want to note Mark Serta. He had a call the previous day, I want to say Christmas Eve, maybe the day before. It was the day before, the 23rd. We had to deliver a death notification to a local family that had lost the father of the family, the husband. And he was able to rally some support. And I'm honored to work with Mark because he took it upon himself to arrange that the PD provide gifts for that family and a meal for that morning. So just a little non-police thing that does happen within our community with your police department. So really proud of them. Kellie Desmond went above and beyond with, again, with See You Later Foundation, provided Christmases for a number of families with the people involved. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, please hit me up, but things are going well at the PD.
Thank you, Chief. We'll call on the other chief. And while Rich is coming up, I just wanted to update. I had an opportunity to meet with Mac Water and Light today, and their linemen and those that work on the lines are A1 and are getting the opportunity to get the COVID shots if they desire also. Chief?
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you. We wanted to do our Christmas light put up and take down has completed the cycle again this year. Our Toy and Joy program did run as we had hoped and planned, and we actually exceeded our families again this year with the help of our all of the folks and generous from the community and the toy drop-off sites and our Les Schwab partner. It's been a huge help. Comcast and Water and Light, again, are huge partners on our Christmas light put up and take down process. We can't do it without them and their help and their equipment. And then finally, I just want to touch base on the 29th of December. The feasibility consultant, the consolidation study, presented the last presentation to Dundee and Dundee Rural. So they have made the presentation to all 9 members or partners that were in the original application process. Our next step will be to, we have been in dialogue with the consultant to start setting up some consultant on elected board one-on-ones. What are your concerns? What are your challenges? And it will be part of the implementation strategic planning process. We'll be initiating that contract here within the next couple of days, and probably have a, with your goal setting sessions scheduling through the next 2 months, we'll probably get on as a presentation maybe in the next council meeting. We'll be setting up and it's the opportunity at that point in time to for each of the boards to determine, are they ready to move forward in a consolidated effort, or would they prefer to hold or find some other method at that point in time to partner with services. And with that, I'll leave it. We're hoping to have run through those Zoom meetings by the end of January, and then have a stakeholder meeting, which each of the boards will have one member stakeholder meeting early in February to try and keep us on track for our goals with the project.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Just a couple of things. I hate to correct Jennifer. She's so excited about the budget process. Our kickoff's actually Thursday, not tomorrow. But she's very eager, as we understand. There's also a typo, a Scribner's error in the COG memo related to my performance evaluation, not one of substance, but we'll have a corrected memo that goes in to the official record. I wanted to let you know that. Just a reminder that I'll be assisting the City of Carlton in interviewing 4 finalists for their city administrator's position. I will be in Carlton for most of the day on Wednesday, tomorrow, and I've got meetings the rest of the day, so I'll be difficult to reach. I may be able to check my email a couple of times, but I'm pretty much going to be out of the office in meetings the whole day. And then just a reminder that public-facing city offices will be closed on Monday in recognition of MLK Junior Day. And I have nothing else to report.
Thank you, Jeff. That takes us to the consent agenda, and I'll ask if any councilors would request to have the item removed from the consent agenda and moved over to a regular placed on our agenda.
Mayor, Council President Drabkin has some additional comments she'd like to make.
Remy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry to be out of place on this. I didn't know if it was going to come up in somebody else's report, and then because there were multiple reports regarding vaccines, I just wanted to add a little county data that that I've heard in multiple meetings, and I think it is pertinent because while there are groups that are eligible in Phase 1A, I think it's important to understand how many vaccines we actually have in the area, so that we can also understand how those are being distributed. And so we being a member of the county, the county health has been working on a plan since last November and is set up to distribute 500 doses per day. However, in the 3 weeks that vaccines have been available, the first week, the county, for all the cities in the county, received a total of 200 doses. Last week, public health received 100 doses. And this week, public health received a total of 700 doses. So I think that that's very important for the public to know. You can also email covid@co.yamhill.or.us to sign up for a weekly newsletter to help everyone understand who is eligible and how to sign up. And the county does have a very robust plan in terms of how to get out the prioritizations and contact the citizenry as different groups become eligible for the vaccine. And one last point of clarity is that Willamette Valley Medical Center and Providence also receive doses separate from public health to vaccinate their employees. So I just want to clarify that those were handled separately, but from the county, from what the distribution that is happening now, what's available for fire, EMS, et cetera, the total number of vaccines that county public health has actually received over the last week were 200, 100, and 700. They are prepared to distribute 500 doses per day if those doses become available.
Yeah, and the thing is, they're not wasting it either. When they had excess vaccine from one site, I don't know which site it was, they took it over and used it, the balance of it over at Brookdale. So that was a good use of it. They're trying to be very efficient with that.
They are distributing all the vaccine that comes in very quickly. They're 100% of the vaccine they're receiving is getting used very quickly.
And also, just to remind everyone, it is a 2-dose process, the vaccine. So thank you, Council President. That moves us over to the consent agenda. Again, would there be any councilor that would request to have the item on the consent agenda removed and heard on the regular place on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Garvin and seconded by Councilor Peralta. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. The consent agenda passes 6-0 this evening. That takes us to our first resolution this evening. It's Resolution 2021-01, a resolution appointing members to the Airport Commission. We'll call on Community Development Director Mike Bissett to present. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'll refer you to the brief staff report and the proposed resolution that's in your packet. And we'll note, Councilor Garvin mentioned that we had 2 members of the Airport Commission that their terms were ending at the end of 2020 and declined to reapply or to remain on the commission, Doug Hurl and John Lautenbach, and we've thanked them for their many years of service on the Airport Commission. As we do with our other committee openings, we published a notice in the News Register and on the city's website, pushed it out through our social media. The mayor, Councilor Garvin, and I participated in interviews on the 16th of December. And at the conclusion of those interviews, we're recommending that the council appoint Grayson Barrows and Richard Martinez as our newest Airport Commission for terms that end at the end of 2024.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussions or questions for Mike from the council? As we've gone through the interviewing process, excellent candidates. All of the candidates that we met with were excellent, and we were so excited to have the number of candidates. And this whole year, as we ended the year, we had many great candidates for all of our committees. So with that, I will ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-01.
So moved.
It's been moved by Adam and seconded. Who was seconded? Zach. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed signify by saying nay. This resolution passes unanimously 6-0. We have one ordinance this evening. Consider the first reading with possible second reading of ordinance number 5099. We want to ask if there were any council members that need to declare a potential conflict of interest or recuse themselves from this ordinance. I think, Zach, you'd indicated that you would recuse yourself.
Correct.
Okay. So we now are going to consider ordinance number 5099. Does any councilor object to having the ordinance read by title only? Seeing none, Amanda, would you do the first reading of ordinance 5099 by title only?
This is the first reading of ordinance number 5099, an ordinance vacating a portion of Southeast Chandler Avenue between Southeast Davis Street and Southern Pacific Railroad.
Thank you, Amanda. Mike, we'll call on you to present.
Thank you, Mayor. I just refer you again to the staff report that's in your packet, as well as the number of attachments related to this item. And I have nothing further to add to the report I had when we did the brief public hearing. So unless there are any questions, staff would recommend that you proceed with the ordinance as presented.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussion among the council this evening on this ordinance?
So I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Adam.
Chris can go.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I just was curious, and this is, pardon my ignorance to how things operate. This may be one of those, it's an obvious question that I'm asking, but my understanding is this is land that belongs to the city and that is an asset of the citizens. So I'm curious, is it normal procedure that we just kind of give the land to somebody without getting something in return? And just maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah,
go ahead, Mike or Amanda. Yeah.
That's a great question, Councilor Chenoweth, and I'll start, and then Amanda can chime in and correct me if I lead you astray. But in Oregon, public right-of-way isn't actually owned by the different jurisdictions. It's held by the public, and the city is the caretaker of that right-of-way until such time as it's no longer needed for public purposes. And so state statute actually outlines specifically how the public right-of-way is to be disposed of if it's determined it's no longer needed for public purposes. And that land goes back to where it came from originally. So when the plats are recorded that dedicate public right-of-way, and that right-of-way is no longer needed, it goes back to the adjacent property owners from where the land came from originally. So it's a different type of ownership than a deeded piece of property that we would own, such as where City Hall is or where the Civic Center that you're sitting is. We actually own the deed of that property. So.
Perfect, thank you. I don't need further explanation. That was great.
Thank you, Councilor. Adam, you had a question?
It was along the same lines, and Mike clarified it. I was just going to ask. So with this being vacated, half of that will go back to Shannon Thorson's designs, and the other half will go back to Linfield with the 20-foot easement between the two.
That's the way it appears to me, but the county surveyor is actually the one that makes that determination. He'll trace the records back to the original plats and determine where the property came from originally, and then dispose of it back to those original locations. So I believe you're absolutely right in this case. It would be a 50-50 split, but that'll be if the council approves the vacation and ordinance and it becomes effective, the next step is for the county surveyor to take that process to determine how the right-of-way is distributed.
And the land they're getting falls into the same zoning of the land they currently have that's adjacent to the right-of-way or part of the right-of-way. Doesn't change the zoning by any measure other than it possibly would make them eligible for a different R rating on residential if they meet a lot square size or something.
The underlying zoning would, I believe, and I think Heather's on the line, would be the same zoning that it gets attached to. So if it's attached to an R1 or an R2, it retains that zoning designation unless the property owner goes through a subsequent process to have it rezoned.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussions or questions? Seeing none, then I will ask for a motion to pass resolution number 5099 to a second reading.
So moved.
Again.
It's been moved by Sal and seconded by Kellie. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Okay, this motion passes on a vote 6-0. So now we will ask that the.
Mayor, I think it's 5-0.
Oh, was there a nay?
Councilor Geary recused himself from consideration.
Thank you very much for reminding me of that. So City Attorney, would you please do a second reading on Resolution 5099 and read it by title only?
This is the second reading of ordinance number 5099, an ordinance vacating a portion of Southeast Chandler Avenue between Southeast Davis Street and Southern Pacific Railroad.
Thank you. I will ask for a motion to approve ordinance number 5099.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Chris and seconded by Adam. I'll ask the city recorder to poll the council.
Councilor Garvin?
Aye.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Councilor Peralta?
Aye.
Councilor Menke?
Aye.
And Council President Drabke?
Aye.
Ordinance number 5099 is adopted by a vote of 5-0. That concludes our city council meeting this evening, and we will adjourn, and it is 9:30. Thank you for your participation.